afternoon and welcome to Steve Wraith's True Crime Podcast. Well, I say a true crime podcast, but I've got a feeling this is going to go a 50-50. We're going to be talking true crime, we're going to be talking football, we're going to be talking fire service, God knows what. We could be talking anything today, but it's a big welcome to Lee Davies. How are you, pal?
I'm all right, mate. Yeah, good. How are you?
It's good. I've just actually had a text message of Neil Samworth. Unbelievable. Sam to his friends, me and you, another former prison officer who I tried to ring today just to wish him all the best. I've had him on the show.
Yeah.
And I've got to be honest, your story first came to me when I was watching his podcast. I then saw you on Shaun Attwoods, but I hadn't listened to it. And I've done that now over the last 48 hours. But it was actually Parlay with Padraig podcast who put us in touch with you and said you should get Lee on. So here we are. Thanks for coming on. And wow, what a story. I'm going to start at the beginning, and I make no apologies for that, because I've got to be honest, after listening to Shaun's podcast with you, I'd come on with the idea of just doing 1 hour with you, but it could go on a little bit longer than that. So forgive me, the viewers, and forgive you, Lee. And if you need to go off and have a break, feel free. But
I'll go off for a lie down in a bit.
Yeah, let's get back to the start. I mean, just tell the viewers where you were born.
In the northwest of England, in a small city called Lancaster, which, to be fair, it's probably a big town, mate. It's it's not a city, like Newcastle or anything like that. It's a very kind of historic city, lovely place to go. I don't know if you've been, or any of your viewers have been.
Yeah, I have.
But it's well worth a visit. Like.
Yeah, top place. And what was your family like? Yeah, did you have a decent childhood?
Yeah, I mean, like I've said, as regards growing up, if anybody could have picked a kind of picture perfect, childhood growing up, two loving parents, only child, then that would have been it. And there was always plenty of love. I mean, there was not a lot of money, as is, with a lot of people in the 80s. I was born in 1980, so I've gone right through the 80s. But I always had a loving family around me, quite small. We didn't have a big family, but as regards growing up, mate, I know a lot of people have had a lot of tough stories, but I certainly can't pin any of my further goings on my childhood, or, kind of childhood issues or trauma.
What were you like at school?
Are we allowed to swear or not?
You can. It's for over 18s, this channel.
Do you know what? I was okay at school. I was not very academic, purely for the fact of I could have been, but I had no interest in being an academic. The only thing I wanted to do from day one, like a lot of lads, like millions and millions of lads and now girls, is just play football. And I know it's very simple, but I could have applied myself to a lot of other things, but I didn't. I just focused purely on sport and football and basically enjoying life like a kid. There wasn't that much pressure in the 80s to become, academics and go to uni and there's, all that kind of thing that they've got now.
I mean, from your perspective, did you leave school with any qualifications?
Minimal, mate. I passed my GCSEs, ranging from A to D, but again, nothing academic. Didn't really fancy going into, anything further, because, I thought my path was set, in the game of football. That's all I'd heard when I was a child, through kind of primary school, secondary school. That was purely my focus, and I didn't know any different. Nobody else had ever put any more ideas into my mind, because my mum and dad always supported that idea, and I think the noise from other people would support that idea. So there was no, and dare I say, where football clubs now have things in place for young men, young players, that basically their education is there at the side of football. I'm talking like 1994, 96, that era, 97, where things hadn't really started to kick off on that front. You were still doing YTS schemes. So if you didn't make it as a footballer, the day after you were down the Dole Centre looking for a job as a labourer or whatever.
So from your perspective, football wise, what position were you playing when you were younger?
I was a lot faster than what I am now, mate, and I haven't got this belly, so I was actually a left winger. Well, either wing. I was actually right-footed, but played on the left wing, but I could use either or, which was, as you know, for a footballer to have, even professionals these days some of them can't kick with their opposite leg. But I was fortunate enough that I was, good with both feet. So I guess that's kind of what the appeal was when people saw me.
Yeah, the left leg's just for standing on. That's what they used to say up
Exactly.
here.
Yeah. It's a drinking leg.
I mean, up in the northeast, if you're good enough for the school, you used to go and play for the county, and then if you went and played for the county, you might get picked up by a scout and then taken to a club. So, how did things pan out for you?
Well, actually, I was fortunate. I kind of missed all that and went straight to, because of the school team I was playing, and we were very good. And we actually got to the an area finals of the kind of Preston district, actually to play on Deepdale. So as we played on Deepdale, I mean, luckily enough, I had a good game. I actually swapped wings, throughout the game because the other lad didn't want to play in front of the crowd. To which I didn't mind at the time. I used to love it. So I swapped wings. And so luckily enough, whoever was watching at the side got to see me both kind of halves. And lo and behold, I had a good game, as did a couple of other lads in the team. And we went to school the next day, and we were called in by the PE teacher and said, look, Preston North End have been in touch. They would like you to go down to, their academy. How do you feel about it? I have to speak to your mum and dad's first. So everything was obviously agreed, and that was kind of the next step.
And did you have an ambition then? Was that your mindset? I'm going to be a professional footballer.
It was. I mean, I'm not going to lie to you. I wasn't dedicated like the lads are today. It was just that was the path that I knew I was going to take. I kind of knew that it was the next step, and that's where I'd be, and then I'd be in the reserves and blah blah blah. I didn't pay too much attention to it, mate. To be honest, it was rolling.
Who was the Preston manager at the time?
It would have been. Let me get this right. It's a fella called. So it was just after a guy called John Beck, and I think a manager called Gary Peters took over, and I think David Moyes was starting to come into the fold, because Moyes used to play centre back for Preston. But he was like an aging lower division player at that point. So the actual manager was a fella called Gary Peters, who was, I think off the top of my head, he was from Torquay, because John Beck had been down that area. I mean, I don't know if you remember John Beck. He was like,
yeah, I do.
Kick it up 5,000 metres in the air, and we'll play a 6'4" man up front, and we might get a goal kind of tactics, To which, me being 5'10" would have been no use to him, but that was the way they played. So I think what he had done at that point, the guy who'd originally scouted us, who strangely enough, I know how he's getting on these days, was called Chris Sully. Now he was Preston North End left back, but I think he's played at different places like Blackburn, etc. So he was head of youth development scouting. He invited us down, and as we arrived, 3 or 4 weeks into our stint at Preston Youth, we were told that he was leaving, I think, to join Blackburn Rovers as their head of youth development. Now, if you can imagine at the time, Blackburn Rovers were, I'm now talking 95, 96. Blackburn had just won the league, so it was a no-brainer for him. They just won the league with, with Alan and Chris Sutton and all that. So for him to go to Blackburn from Preston was his kind of dream role. So you could understand the guy taking the job. There was a new guy, I think he now actually is involved with the FA, so he's done really well. I think he's now high up. Whatever he's doing, I'm not sure, probably in youth development. So they brought a new guy in. I mean, this is probably the worst thing that could have happened. They brought a new guy in called, Christ, what was his name? Paul Compton or Crompton, something like that.
Yeah, now, Crompton, I think it was, yeah.
Crompton, yeah. He's not on my Christmas card list. So he'd been brought in, and there was a Torquay connection there, because I think he was a Southerner stroke Torquay lad. So obviously John Beck and Gary Peters had pushed him in. Now, I think we'd gone on another, I don't know, let's say we'd gone on another few months. Things were not, it seemed in training that it was just disinterested with the lads that were already there. As in, we'd had good reports from all this. I mean, we'd been brought to the club, for Christ's sake. We were doing well. And this guy had come in and pretty much would just kind of ignore us. And it was weird, because you think, well, hang on a minute, I need some interaction. I need to know how I'm doing. There was purely him and maybe 2 coaches, a fitness coach, conditioning coach, they call them nowadays. But was getting nothing back. And subsequently, there was a couple of lads brought in from Liverpool, and there was a lot of lads brought in from down south. I mean, I don't know how that worked. They must have offered them some kind of digs up here, or etc. And I think one day we'd gone in and called us all in, maybe 4, 5, 6 of us, and said, look, I'm not in a position now to take this any further. You've been released. Thanks a lot. Thanks for your time, and crack on. To which you think, well, all right then, fine. What do we do now? Where do I go? And because I'm not going to lie, that night I was pretty heartbroken, because it's the first time that I'd heard maybe someone say, look, you know what, you're not good enough, or I don't think you can make it. Now, as a young man, I didn't have the journey I've been on, as you know, I didn't have the mental strength or the stability to say, do you know what, mate, I appreciate that. I'm not for everyone. I just thought, right, well, that's it. My dream stopped. I didn't have it in me to then, my family are not sporting. I didn't have anyone around me to grab hold of me to say, look, don't worry about it. Just go to the next club, go to the next club. And I reacted completely wrong. And when I'd finished grieving as such for the next few days, I thought, you know what, sod it. I'm not interested. I don't want to be a footballer anyway. And it was a real immature, selfish reaction, to which I regretted for the rest of my life.
It's weird that, because I was like that with acting. From my perspective, I did a pantomime when I was 17. Oh yes, I did. And this pantomime was a backbreaker. From my perspective, I had to put the set up with the rest of the crew, do 2 hours, take the show down, move on to the next venue, 3 shows a day. I was promised an equity card. I was promised X amount of money. I didn't get an equity card after doing 70 shows in 3 weeks, and I didn't get the money that I was expecting. And I thought, if that's acting, and bearing in mind I was acting from the age of 7 until I was 17, I went, if that's acting, stick it. And I walked out, and I went into family business, mate. So our life stories are quite similar in that way. And it's a life decision that you make when you're immature that sometimes can have an impact on the rest of your life, which I know our viewers are going to find out. Exposure TV, hi mate, hope you're well. And Terry Armstrong, Happy New Year. I did see your message before. Okay, so football dreams over. What's next for Lee?
Well, I think because probably you've invested so much time and kind of love into what you want to do or what you think you're going to do. I think I kind of felt that I'd missed out on all my mates at that point. I'd started going out, as you do, you find girls, you find pubs, you find, a different world, than your school life or your young life. So I guess I kind of thought, right, well, now's my time to maybe enjoy that. So, I mean, at that point, I'd still playing football, but albeit a decent local level, and just kind of playing around with it, if I'm honest, turning up pissed on a Sunday, still being better than everyone else. And because of, the background that I'd had for the previous few years. So I was kind of getting away with it and winging it, technically, but not enjoying it. It was like a bystanding. So when I'd finished the football, I actually managed to enroll on a sports science course, because back in that day, the things to kind of roll into was computers and sports science, because I'm talking pre-internet days now, mate, as in we're still in 96, 97, a lot of people won't understand this, but there's no such thing as the internet. So to kind of focus yourself on computers, they were going to be the next big thing, and the sport. So I did the sports science thing just purely because of my background. I wasn't really interested in it, if I'm honest. So I kind of did that, completed that course. And at the end of it, the chance was there to maybe the next step would be to go to university to be a PE teacher or a sports bloody physiotherapist. And again, I just wasn't interested. And by that point, I'd really, got into the going out scene and the women and the whatnot. And I just finished the college course and said, nah, it's not for me. I'm just going to go and get a job. All my mates were, earning money. They'd have money in the pocket. I'd have bugger all in my pocket, and they were going out. They were buying cars. We get, kind of seduced by that young man. I want to work in life. In hindsight, what I should have done is stuck to my guns and waited around for what I really wanted. But we all know that, because I'm sat here as a 40-year-old man now. That's hindsight and reflection, isn't it?
So obviously the football dream's over. What jobs did you try and pursue?
I think I worked for a couple of local companies, just doing a bit of labouring. I did a very short, welding course, fabrication course. Didn't like that. Started working for a firm doing electric roller shutters, electric gates. Ended up just going in as a temporary staff in the factory. I've ended up staying with that firm for a good 7-8 years. You know, started in the factory as a lad, then kind of further myself in the factory, ended up in the office, ended up actually as a sales manager for them, you know, because I knew the product and I'd gone right through the business, done well. And that was kind of really my life. It kind of got to a plateau where I thought, you know, I need a bit more than this. Where am I going with this? I think you know, by that point, mate, I'd have been a good 20, 24, 25, 24, something like that, 25. And I got to the point of thinking, you know, I need a little bit more. What can I do? I was that point, I was heavily going out on the booze, as in, you know, every weekend job, 3-4 nights a week. I think to offset, deep down, I was disappointed that I'd never made anything of myself, or so I thought. So I think I was probably masking that by going out into the town, boozing, you know, going on with women, probably using women, you know, the wrong way, you know, just to fulfill my ego and what I was empty inside. You know, really, I'll be honest with you, mate, I was an arsehole, an absolute arsehole. And I wouldn't have liked to have grown up that man. I mean, the journey I've been on has pulled me back a peg or two, as you can imagine. You know, and maybe look at things a lot different. Listen, when you're sat in a room for a long time in a cell 6x8, you've got a lot of time to think about how you've ended up there or why you've ended up there. So when I talk about my, you know, the experiences about football, it's not me giving it the victim mentality. It's the fact that I've had a lot of time to sit in a room and realise why I've made these fucked up decisions.
Yeah, time is a great healer, though, mate, and you know, you've certainly been on a hell of a journey. What made you apply for the fire service?
So, I think you have got them up in North East. They've got, I mean, the general public might not know this. You just see a fire engine turn up to a fire and 6 firemen run out and put it out. But we have in England, and certainly I think in Ireland as well, we have kind of 2 fire services under one fire service. You've got what they call whole time, full time, and you've then got a service called retained, which is the old firemen on alerters. So you get a pager. They live within a small area of a fire station, usually a rural location, you know, where they can't afford to have 6 men on 30 grand a year sat around for 4 fires a year. So financially, it makes sense to have lads on alerters, still trained the same as firemen, but they do it in blocks. Instead of going in and doing 13 weeks intensive, you'll go and do 3 weeks basic, then you'll go and do another 2 weeks, then you'll kind of build it up that way. So the local company that I was working for, like I said, with the roller shutters, they had relocated to a rural area because they were massive. They were getting big, new premises. And the local fire brigade came in, Hornby Fire Station. I don't know if anybody knows it. And they came in and said, Woods, I mean, the boss at the time of the company, the managing director, was a great guy. I probably didn't appreciate him as much when I was there, but the opportunities he gave you were fantastic. He was always good for staff development. And they came in and saw him and said, would we be able to approach any of your staff to maybe try out for our retained fire service? So we said, yeah, you can approach people. And I think there was maybe 5 or 6 people that maybe initially applied, whittled down to, you have to go for physical tests like you do in the fire brigade. You have to go down and spend a day doing all the different kind of assessments. So I applied for it and I thought, you know what, that sounds quite good. You know, it gives me that extra, you know, focus, or maybe it's a way in, or I didn't think about it. And I thought at the time, I thought I was scared of heights. I mean, how fucked up's that? You know, to go running up and down ladders. But, you know, I went for it and things took off. And luckily enough, I got through. I was the only one that got through. So I started down that road. I started doing the part-time fire service. So you would train a couple of times a week, you know, like you would do at football at night, 2 hours. And you would go and attend fires as and when your alerter went off. So you would jump in your car, fly to the fire station, jump on the fire engine, and away you go to your fire. Easy stuff. And I was loving it, loving life. I then got the chance to, because I was enjoying it that much, I thought, I want to do this as a full-time job. You know what I mean? I was enjoying it. I was decent at it. I was young enough. I was fit enough. The whole world ahead of me. So I thought, I'll apply for the whole time. But at that point, I'm now talking maybe 2006, 2007. There was a cull in recruitment in fire service, police service, ambulance service. They were kind of trimming everything back, paying off the old boys and really trimming services back. So recruitment in Lancashire was pretty much at a standstill. So I was offered the chance to join a busier station, although still retained, in Morecambe, which is, you'll know Morecambe. It's a lot busier than where I was working. And again, I thought, as far as development goes, I'll go into a busier station. Then when I do apply, I'll have more experience. They'll know that I'm working a busy station. It'll be an easier step in. I'm obviously still working whilst I was doing that. I was working at the time. I got a job at a car garage. One of my mates was a sales manager there. With the sales background I then just went and worked for Citroen whilst doing the fire service. So at that point, I still had quite a focus and a plan. And this had gone on for, I don't know, I was maybe doing this for, say, 2 years. And nothing was going on with recruitment. I actually got into North Yorkshire. Now, in hindsight, and I know we're looking back, I wish I'd have gone. I wish I'd have taken it. But at the time, I had a house, a girlfriend, and I was solely waiting for Lancashire, because at the end of the day, I could still be posted anywhere in Lancashire. It was quite a big county, but I should have joined North Yorkshire, but I didn't. And I went about next 2 years fighting fires in Morecambe, gaining experience, still on the piss, still being an idiot. Not to the extent that we'll get to, but everything just seemed to be working nicely again. I had a bit of a focus, and a good family, good support, perfect life. Then came maybe 2 years on, and I've applied now a few times for whole time, and it's not working. See, this is where the decision-making process and the immaturity kicks in. I then start to get unsettled and thinking nothing's happening. It's not going to happen for me. So I've gone on holiday to Turkey with my girlfriend at the time on cheap one, the £100 holidays. And actually, do you know where I booked it? I booked it in Whitehaven, of all places. And it was in a travel agent window, £100, Marmaris, Turkey, 3-star. And I just rung her up and said, right, come on, we're going on holiday on Monday, sod it. Booked the time off from the part-time brigade, went on holiday to Turkey. And I said, if we get there and it's rubbish, I'll just book us in somewhere else. At least we've got, we're in Turkey for £100, for Christ's sake. End of. So we've gone for a week, and on day, I think it was, let's say we got there the Friday. On the Saturday and Sunday, my phone's going and it's flashing up, mum, home, whatever. And I've answered it. My mum said, Lee, the fire brigade is trying to get in touch with you. They would like to speak to you ASAP. They need you to go to Chorley, the training centre in Lancashire's Chorley. They need you to go to a training centre on Monday because they've got a spare place on a whole-time recruitment course. And I thought, right, it's now Saturday, Sunday, I'm in Turkey. I looked at the flights. I couldn't get back into England until maybe I think it was late Monday, so I wouldn't have got there till Tuesday morning. So I rung the fire brigade and said, look, I'm on holiday. I can't physically get back. And they said, well, we've got a place for you. We know you've been applying. Somebody has dropped out. If you can get there for Monday morning, there's a whole-time course there for you. And I say, you're not listening to me. I can't get back in time for Monday. It will have to be Tuesday or Wednesday. And they said, we need you there for Monday morning because of the admin, So at that point, I said, look, well, I can't make it. You're going to have to put me onto another one. Now, again, this immaturity, stupidity, I've gone back to the pool with the missuses and I've said, I am sick of this. Because I thought, they're taking the mickey here. They know I'm on holiday. They've offered me a course. They know I can't get there. So then I proceeded to chuck my toys out of the pram for most of the holiday. Got back. I then thought, if this is the way it's going to go, do I really want to be in the fire brigade part-time? And it went on for a while longer, mate. I was still doing the part-time job, still doing that. And in the end, I got back. I mean, this, like I've said on the other podcast, this is quite a key moment. So I've told you that the stupid decisions that I make, I don't stick to what I want. I'm like fucking Craig Bellamy to a certain degree.
Yeah.
He'll get the no and he'll run off to the corner flag and he'll start bitching. He'll can have an argument with yourself in the mirror. That's the kind of person I was back then. Petulant. So I've got back and my girlfriend's mum at the time was a prison officer. Here we go. Prison officer. And she said, why don't you apply for the prison service? And I thought, what? I'd never even thought in my wildest dreams about the prison service. And I said, well, no, I'm not into that. But the seed was planted, 30 grand a year, a pension, 2 within the local city, so I wouldn't have to really travel. All these things come into your mind and you think, you know what, actually, I get along with people. I've done sales jobs. I don't mind standing in a group of lads and making a dick of myself. I'm fairly confident at that point. So I thought, let's try it. Did the application. She said, oh, you won't hear anything back. It takes a good year to get in. I reckon within a couple of weeks, there was a letter through the door. We would like to invite you for, maths, English, all them kind of tests, basic tests, mate. And obviously with the education that I'd had, it's not really a problem to someone who's all right. So done them, and she said, right, that'll be you now. Carried on. I reckon within another few weeks, there was another invitation. We would like you to come for, they call it JSAT, which is like a role play assessment. They'll put you in a microphoned room with, you'll know this with your acting and what, a microphoned room, and you'll have an angry shopkeeper. You'll have a lady who's been, I don't know, involved in domestic violence. You'll have two lads that want to kick your head in, and you've got to, what they're looking for is how you react in these different situations, and what information you can gain from that situation. So you'll have anger, then you'll have to show empathy, then you'll have to show understanding, etc. And that's what they're looking for. And they're marked on like buzzwords and things. I mean, it means in the job, mate, as you can imagine, it means bollock all. However, they just want to see how you react to a different kind of dynamic. So I've done these, and I thought, I don't know what I've done there. And you kind of think, well, could I handle that better? You start questioning yourself and thinking, that angry fella, should I have said this? But strangely enough, there was more tests after it, some more, what can you say, like skill tests. Done that, and you don't find out on the day, you've got to go away. So that was over in Leeds. Now, that was a 2-hour drive. So all the way back, you're thinking, fuck, how have I done? Did I do all right? So maybe a week or two's passed, and I'm thinking, well, maybe not. Again, maybe no's coming of it. Job come through. We're pleased to inform you you've passed the test, etc., etc., etc. Can you basically send us 3 jails that you would like to work at? Because then you could choose. In the old days, your kind of craze era, 70s, 80s, all you did was apply for the prison service. You could get, and you would get yes, and they could say to you, Steve, right, Steve, you're working on the Isle of Wight, mate. And you'd be like, sorry, what? I live in Lancaster. So you could get posted anywhere. You had no choice. But lo and behold, now they're on local recruitment. So you choose 3 jails that you want to choose, like when you do with your schools and your colleges. So I chose Lancaster Farms, Lancaster Castle, which at the time was still open. It was an adult jail, very oldie worldy. And I chose Preston was the next one closest, 20 miles away. So it just made sense. I had a phone call from Lancaster Farms, I think maybe next week, saying, can you attend an interview? So I was like, yeah. So things are moving really quickly now. Now I'm thinking, shit, do I really want to join this prison service? I mean, I've just put the application in. I don't know, maybe to see how I did. Now I'm thinking this could be a reality now. Gone to the interview. There's a panel of 3 people. You've usually got like let's call it a manager, assistant, and a supervisor. They call them POs, SOs, and prison officers, or they did them. So they're all sat there. It's like an X Factor panel. They will be chucking in joke, how would you react to this, and what would you do in this situation, and a bit background about you. So I've done the interview. It was quite nerve-wracking, really, to have 3 people on a panel. I've never done anything like that where I've had to sit and bat off 3 people. Lo and behold, come back, had a phone call the next day. 14 people, I think, went for that job, and I think, well, off the top of my head, I think 4 of us got it, or 5, and they said, we'd like to offer you a position. So then it's like, wow, it's D-Day now, isn't it? It's, what do I do? Discussed it with the missus, discussed it with her mum, discussed it with my mum and dad, and I thought, yeah, I'll give it a shot. I didn't really think about the implications of what I was doing, because I've always been off the wit. I'll do anything off the cuff and think about it later, which obviously has cost me. So yeah, I went for it, and then you go away to, I think the training course was maybe a couple of months later. You go down to HMP Wymont and Garth in a porter cabin. I mean, prison officer training. Let's get this right, in a porter cabin. What's that about? What you're going to learn by sat, and I'm not taking the piss here. It was a porter cabin. So, you enroll on your course, and you've got 20 fresh-faced. I mean, I don't know if you've seen that picture of me the day that I joined the prison service.
Yeah, I have. Yeah.
As opposed to the day that I'd left the prison service, technically. I mean, the difference in, 20 fresh-faced, young, keen people who want to help, who want to get into the job. And then 3 years later, if you look at the state, obviously I contributed massively to that, but it's a different world. So yeah, you've got all these fresh-faced people from different backgrounds. You might have a mechanic, you might have a former army man, you might have a checkout worker, all signed up to be prison officers. So big dynamics, young and old, men and women. There's no one size fits all nowadays in the prison service. It's anyone. So you're all sat there, nervous as hell, and it pretty much made it was a 2-month course, Monday to Friday, with a week's gap in the middle in the jail that you're going to go and work at. And it's classroom based, as in, I know there's a hell of a lot of protocols in prison and rules and regulations and things that you need to learn. So there's always going to be that side of it, but there's very little hands-on. I mean, there's like little mock setups of cells, but you don't get the full kind of impact of what you're going into until you go back to that week. Yeah, well, exactly. Yeah.
That's you, isn't it?
What a handsome man.
Yeah, go on, mate. Go on.
Said Stevie Wonder. Right. So yeah, you do your training, and then in the middle of it, you go back to the jail that you're going to work in, for a bit of a teaser. So you go back in, and I'll never forget it. I've gone through the gates, and you kind of see all the wings. I mean, there's 1,000 people in the jail that I worked at, and you go in, there's a reception. You go in through security doors, so straight away. I mean, you would think to a person who's worked in Asda, that would be quite daunting straight away to start going through security checks and stuff. So then you go onto your wing, and I'll never forget it. It was an evening, and the prison officer, because you're not allowed keys, the prison officer had opened the door, and all the boys were out on association. So you had a good 80 lads all in one room at full pelt, full noise, playing pool cues, pool balls, radios, TVs, music coming out of cells, lads shouting across, Manchester, Liverpool. And I remember thinking, fucking hell, this is like a zoo. And at that point, I'll be honest with you, mate, I did think, I'll be honest with you, mate, I was scared inside. I didn't show it, but I thought, shit in hellfire, what have I let myself in for here? Am I going to be able to do this? I don't think I can do this. But you go on, don't you? And you go on, and all the lads are like, there's a new one on, there's a newbie on. Because you do. I mean, look at that picture there, tanned up to death, white teeth. You're going to get absolutely hammered, aren't you?
Yeah.
let's be honest, you're going to get hammered. And I did. So, but that happens to everyone. That wasn't, just to me. That's not specialist to me. That happens to everyone on there. And it's tough because a lot of people, it's like the shock factor, isn't it? If you're shocked by that straight away, which I was, you're then questioning a hell of a lot of things. And if you're not on your mettle, people pick up on things like that. So maybe straight away, let's hypothetically say someone's seen me and thought, fucking hell, he don't fancy it. Like when we're playing football or when we look at football on TV, you look at someone opposite you, your fullback or whatever, and you think, you don't fucking fancy it today, do you? Because you've rinsed him once, and then you've got him then, haven't you?
Yeah.
But anyway, so fast forward, I've done the week, and I've gone home at nights, and obviously people are asking, how's it going? I said, yeah, it's good, because at that point, the ego would not let me say, I'm worried about this. My ego was like, oh, yeah, of course it is. It's all right. Yeah, it's sound. Piece of piss kind of mentality. So, yeah, we've done that week, and we've gone back to training, and I think a lot of people felt that way, but a lot of people were scared to maybe say it. I don't know. I can't speak for other people, but I know I didn't say anything. I wish I had. Because in them days, I know the prison service is trying to change a little bit. I've met them recently. They're trying to, there was no such thing as, if you go into, your job, an actor or an electrician, or you'd have like a mentor, don't you, usually? If you're a trainee, they didn't even have mentors back in them days. I mean, I'm only talking bloody, what we're in, 2007 onwards. They only started introducing things like mentors after I'd been put away. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm not saying that would have stopped me doing what I'm doing, but it would have been maybe someone that you can go to as a new recruit and said, look, I'm a bit worried about this. You know, maybe, you know, can you show me something else? Can you give me a positive, you know, look on things rather than this, because I'm shit scared. But it's one of them, innit? You know, these are all hindsights and things that we learn after that we maybe could have done different, and you know, and hopefully someone, you know, might watch this and maybe not go down the same route that I did.
It's interesting because you talk about the training before we get into the next story, but the training it sounds very similar to doorman training, and I always used to find it absolutely bizarre that when I used to have to go and do like a refresher for my doorman's license, that they would put you in a situation was quite clearly never going to happen in real life. And I mean, in a situation on the door, you can face violence, you know, at any time. Somebody could be coming at you with a knife, a bottle, a Jif Lemon bottle full of acid. It could be anything. And you don't have time, I'm afraid to say, to get your distance, put your hands out and say, can you just wait there, sir? Stop. And I know I've listened to some of your other interviews. That's what they were doing in the prison service. It's ludicrous, isn't it?
Yeah, it wasn't, the training wasn't fit for purpose, Paul, I'll be honest. I mean, I'll say it now because I want to put all the time on. It's like I always have to qualify myself because I'm looking at it very objectively now, but it's got no taking on what I did in the end, because I think that would have happened anyway, you know, irrespective of the training. Although I think there should be a lot more training done on corruption, because I think that's the biggest challenge in the job now. It always has been the biggest challenge in my eyes. And the staff they're taking on these days are so young, mate. I mean, when I say that I could have a son in the prison, I mean, I'm 41. I know they're taking on lads and lasses that are pretty much 20-year-old and 21. I mean, think of that of what you will, but that technically could be my son, and you know, and your son and daughter. And it's bizarre the fact that, you know, I think a corruption training we got, I think, one afternoon on a projector. I mean, after 2 months training, I've asked many prison officers afterward, can you remember corruption training? And they were like, don't post a letter. Because that was one of the slogans that they used to say, don't post a letter for a prisoner, because that could be the start of your corruption trail. So it was like a catch thing that they used. So yeah, I mean, looking back on it now, mate, the training was not fit for purpose. And it didn't give you any preparation for that first day in the job, if I'm totally honest, bar doing paperwork, which as soon as you go onto that wing and you've got 80 lads in front of you, stick paperwork up your ass, because you've got to learn how to deal with men quickly and situations and anxiety and stress and volatile situations and corruption from day one, because let's face it, there's no easier target than someone who's brand new in the job, isn't there?
Yeah, well, let's tell us about that first day. I mean, obviously, once you've completed your training and you've got your, you know, you've got your uniform and you've got your, you know, you've got your radio, and suddenly you're thrust onto the wing. You know, and you haven't got that man walking along with you, the other prison officer who's got years' experience. What was it like for you? I mean, was it a case of putting on a bit of face, putting a bravado on? You know, were you worried?
Well, absolutely, all the time, mate. Worried in the sense of, I think if you're faced with 80 lads who are around you, who you know, listen, the boys are not in there for, you know, for walking people across the road, are they? And they're not in there for nicking penny sweets. So you've always got that subconscious in your mind that any given moment it can go off, not necessarily just against you. I mean, I've never had any violence technically towards me. It was always getting in the way of gangs going at it, or two lads going at it, or, you know, a kicking in a cell or whatever. But you go on there and you're given a radio. I mean, even just holding your radio, you know, when you've got people in front of you firing questions at you and you're trying to relay a radio message, your hands like that and your fucking words are all over the place. And even though I was in the fire brigade, so I was used to using radios. So it's not as if I was not confident on a radio, but if you've got 5 lads in front of you saying, you know, where's my canteen? Where's me, you know, because these are big issues in prison for lads, as I know, you know, where's my canteen? Where's my phone credit? Because they want to speak to the mum or the baby or whatever. Big issues in your face straight away, which seem menial to us outside before I went in prison, but they're not. They're massive things for lads. So I'm on there, and you start opening doors, and you're given an unlock list. So you're looking at, say, 6, Steve Wraith, cell 6, he needs to go out to education. Davies in 7, he needs to go to the dentist. You've got to go and do all the unlocking. But when you're a new member of staff, what they do in the prison service, like in our jobs, we would send the youngest lad or the trainee to go and put the kettle on, wouldn't we? You know, it's that kind of mentality. You know, get the young whippersnapper to go to the shop and get the pies. And when you are a new prison officer, you are what they have a discharge board. So you're in charge of that as a new officer. So they couldn't put you in any worse situation because all the responsibility is now on you. You're stood there at the gate, signing all these boys off, taking all the shit from them on the way out because they've not had the canteen or, you know, or the fucking breakfast was cold or whatever. So they're all calling you on the way out. You've got to mark them out. You've then got to relay your numbers to the prison management unit so they know how many's off the unit. And all the while you're thinking, wow, I'm fucked. My head's fucked here. Because you've not even had time to find your own feet in there and find your own personality, because you're told by all the prison officers, or I found, that, you know, you need to be this rock hard, steady, stone-faced man, fucking yes or no kind of mentality. But then you've got the other side of that and you think, well, I don't want to be like that. There's no need for me to be like that and to be like that with lads. I mean, I was always quite a personable person. I'd rather be, I wouldn't say someone's mate, but I'd rather be on an all right level with someone in there, because in the end, there's 3 prison officers on a wing of 80 lads. If they wanted to give you a good kick in, you're not coming out of that. It doesn't matter how strong you are or how hard you think you are or how big your baton is, you're going to get done in. So I was uneasy with that from day one. I'd rather somebody call me Lee than Mr. Whatever. But I understand now that was probably the wrong way to go about it, because it sends off the wrong messages. But at the time, I was struggling with my identity in there. I just wanted to be a normal lad. So, but yeah, first day, mate, tough. A lot of anxiety.
First day, tough. Probably, you know, give us the hairiest moment that you faced. I mean, I've heard some horror stories from, you know, some of these YouTube podcasts that I've listened to, and, you know, from some of the prison officers that have given their story, and some of the inmates. I mean, what was the hairiest situation that you went into?
What, actually in the jail that I worked in?
In the jail that you worked in, yeah.
There was one of the prison officers actually got took hostage. She's now out of the job, and I've seen her quite regularly, to be fair. She was taken hostage by lads. I'll give you, in fact, just a quick one. Day one, I can't remember if it was day 1 or 2. So this was my first introduction to you either fight or flight, because in there, I've heard stories now of prison officers, dare I say it, if there is an incident on the wing, I mean, I couldn't think of anything worse, fucking running off behind a gate and locking himself in a safe area. And there's still 2 prison officers on the wing and they're getting a beating. I've heard stories of that recently, which is fucking not right. That's nasty. But right, so my second day at weekend, if anybody knows, you're pretty much fed to your cell. So the prison officers would wheel a trolley round. You take the food, the sandwiches to the cell, you open the door one at a time. So there's only 2 prisoners ever out at once, or could be, because you're on minimum staff on a Sunday evening. Taking the trolley round, and I was working with a big fella, and he's in front of me with the trolley. I've opened the door, and this lad come fucking in my face, like not to me, but to the officer that I'm with. Now, I believe they've had some to do earlier on in the day. I don't know, it's only come on in the afternoon. They've had us to do in the day, and he's gone for this prison officer, like literally flew past me, because I wasn't expecting it. Hit the fucking sandwich trolley, which has gone everywhere. You know what I mean? There's now ham and cheese everywhere, pal. And he started battling with this prison officer. Now, at that point, I'm thinking, it's only my second day in. You've done your control and restraint training, and you think, well, what do I do now? Because in your control and restraint training, they think, right, you need to fold this arm there, you need to jump on his back, you need to put his arm behind his back safely, and you need to escort him back to his cell. Fuck that, it all goes out of the window. Somebody's getting filled in on the floor because they were rolling around the floor. It's literally a case of jump on and do what you can. It's, you know, like your doorman stuff. There's certain ways to move people, there's certain ways to transport people. When it's all going off, it's just like an helicopter, isn't it?
Yeah, and as you say, that you've just coined it, fight or flight. You can't teach that.
You can't. You've just got to get involved. But luckily enough, I've got that fight within me, as in I've got, in situations I'd already experienced fire brigade and things like that. So I obviously wasn't a flighter as such. So I would always get involved. I'd always try and help someone no matter what. But I just jumped on him. I mean, this guy was a big lad. I just jumped on him and just laid on him. until the other big fella got off, and then we started to obviously restrain him. And thank God the other prisoner didn't come out of the cell and join in, because it could have been all that.
So I mean that in itself, I can imagine that just happening on a day-to-day basis. Obviously, the prison was split into wings. The first prison that you worked at, I mean, I would presume one wing was your ordinary cons. The other wing was probably sex offenders, was it?
Well, at that time it was young offenders, so there wasn't. If sex offenders were mixed in, there wasn't really a segregated unit. So it was all pretty much 1,000. Kind of category B lads. So there could be anything in there, from a rapist to armed robbers, murderers that were maybe waiting for relocation. You had everything in there. But shop thieves, hell of a lot of gangs in there, mate. There was, because Lancaster based where it is, all the big gangs from Manchester and Liverpool were being housed in Lancaster Farms. Now, I mean, that's Liverpool versus Manchester is big in itself.
Yeah.
Then start putting gang life in there. So you've got gang life of Manchester with all the big boys, all the big names that we all know of. And then you've got Liverpool. So being a prison officer, the most hard part in that jail at that point was actually managing who was where and where it was going to kick off next. Like I said, there was always like melees of 6, 7, 8 lads looking pool balls going past your head. I mean, how mad's that? Giving pool balls to 21-year-old lads who were, charged up, shall we say. And, there'd be regular, there'd be pool balls going past your head all the time, or plates off the server, and people get smacked around the head with metal pans, and it was mayhem. Even before you'd come in on a morning shift, you'd just been brushing your teeth 10 minutes before, and you've come in, open the door, and all of a sudden you're rumbling 6 or 7 lads, off each other to try and break something up. Crazy.
I mean, in those early days, because obviously we're going to lead to the next stage of your story. In those early days, those first few weeks, shall we say, was there any sign of what was to come for you as a person? Did you have a situation where somebody would ask you to do something and you said no, or did you have a situation, just a minor thing? Because it seems a sudden jump from being an ordinary Joe, prison officer. You've gone in, you're doing your job, you've got the uniform, you're all one team, you've done the training, and I think everything you've done, you're a team player. Football, team player. Fire brigade, team player. Prison officer, team player. So was there thinking back now, and you've had plenty of time to think about it, was there a situation where you maybe did something that you can think, oh God, that was the start of it?
I think it's quite well known when you do your early time. Lads will, like I've said, the easiest person to approach, maybe if you're going to corrupt someone, is someone fresh in the job, because they may be scared, they may be skeptical, they may have gone in there to do that. I mean, there's a lot of people join the prison service now to do that. Big gangs obviously employ young girls, young lads to go in there to be strategically placed in these jails to go into corruption. So I think as a new member of staff, you're easily approachable. And I think because they would always test you, lads will always test you. And this happens in everyday life. They will always test a new member of staff, even with little things like, can I have an extra shower? Can I go on the phone? No. And then go and use the phone anyway to see your reaction. So I think over a period of, over a few years, people were obviously watching me thinking, can we do it? Can we not? Maybe they just tried their luck one day, and I was at a wrong place in my life, which I think obviously contributed massively to my decision making. And then the greed took over. But I think to answer your question, mate, sorry, a one-off thing. There wasn't a one thing in my mind where they've targeted it. It's been a build-up, I think, over a period.
Okay, so let's fast forward to that situation that you found yourself in. So, tell us where you were. Had you moved to a different prison by that stage?
No, I was always based on the same wing. So I'd now been, and which is why I think it was over a period of time, I'd always been on the same wing in the same prison. Right. So, and on that time, a lot of lads would have done that sentence with me, if you understand.
Yeah.
So, it was not that transient. The lads would be on there for 2, 3, 4 years at a time. So I'm now in charge of the cleaning party, 6 lads, got a little bit more experience, really struggling in the job now, mate, to be honest, because I realised it wasn't for me. drinking heavily, and I mean heavily, to kind of probably mask my own stupid shit that was going on in my own mind. I'd become recluse in the sense of I wouldn't socialise much anymore. I'd still go out on the piss with my mates, but I'd get absolutely mortal. I'd go out doing what I used to do, going on with women, even though I had a girlfriend. And I just, again, it's all these stupid little immature internal battles because I've not achieved what I thought I should achieve. Lo and behold, the ego and the alcohol and everything like that comes into play again. Plus, I hated the job. I hated being a prison officer because I always, the angst and the anxiety of doing that job was just fucking next level. I mean, anybody who does it, a big respect to you, because I know what it feels like to walk on that wing. And there's not a lot of people it's like walking into work every day and 60 people want to fucking punch you in the chops. You know, that it's a very negative, toxic environment. And that, I think, builds up. And I think after a while, I'd become completely disillusioned with life. At that point, I was bordering on alcoholism, as a lot of prison officers are. You know, certainly back in those days, there was no real staff support, like I say, regards to training. And I'd gone off on my own. I was on self-destruct mode at that point, mate. And then lo and behold, I'm in charge of, usually I'm the cleaning officer. So I'm the one looking after the 6 lads that you're in contact with 24/7, technically. You know, you're always on their case. Go and clean this, go and clean that, go to the servery. So you spend more time with them, pal, than you do, you know, your missus. You get home at night, you see your missus for 2 hours and you go to bed. With these lads, you're spending 12 hours a day with them sometimes, in each other's pockets. So you've got to get on with them to a certain degree because, you know, they're working for you. So I think the relationship I developed with the lads was one of, how can I say it? Familiarity. I actually liked the lads. They obviously saw in me that I was a decent lad to a certain extent, but I was also probably struggling. So they probably thought that maybe now is the right time to ask him, will you bring us something in? And I remember the lads, and on a couple of podcasts, people have said that's absolute bullshit. And I'll tell it exactly how it is. Because listen, it doesn't mean nothing to me now because, you know, we've moved on. I just want people to know how it did happen, so they can maybe not do it. But a lot of people have questioned it, like, well, no, that's not how it happened at first. The very first instance that I took something in was one of the cleaners had a ill father, and I mean ill in hospital, ready to pop it father. And he called me into his cell one day. 2 lads were there. One of them walked out, and he said, "Lee, I need you to do me something. I need you to bring me a telephone in. I've got no PIN credit on my phone. I need to speak to my dad. Please, can you bring me a telephone in? I need it, please, please." He was in tears, in distress. I said, no, I can't do that. Went off to play football at dinner time, as I quite frequently did. Thought no more of it and just thought it was a flippant comment. Come back, the lad's still in the same state. Everyone's gone off to work. He's asked me again, and I said, you know, I can't do that. What I should have done at that point, by the way, for people who work in prisons, is gone and put a security report in and said, this prisoner is trying to get me to bring contraband in. He would then probably get oiked off another wing or even moved to prison because they're trying to get a staff on side. But I didn't. So first and foremost, I've broken rule 1 there by not fulfilling my job. Second, because I didn't, at the end of the day, I just took it as a flippant comment, and neither did I want to see the lad kiboshed halfway across the country. I just took it for what it was, a comment. So he's asked me again, and later on he said, I'll give you 400 quid. I'll say no more of it. Please just bring me a telephone in so I can speak to my dad. Now, I want to put this out there. There was drugs and telephones in that prison already. You know, quite frequently we would find mobile phones. Prisoners can bring mobile phones in, secreted in the back passage. They can bring them in via visits. Someone, you know, bringing them in for them. They can bring them in. The wing that I worked on, the back wall basically faced onto a field. So there was throwovers all the time. I mean, how shit is the prison security there to have a wing yard on the field? So, you know, it was a constant battle with mobile phones and drugs anyway. Forget what I was about to do. So he said, I'll give you 400 quid to bring me a phone in. I'll say no more of it. And I said, and at that point, I remember thinking to myself, 400 quid. At that point, I was earning maybe 1,200-1,300 quid a month as a new prison. Well, you go up pro rata over 5 years, so you're not on 30 grand straight away. Not that it's of any relevance whatsoever, because I shouldn't have done it, but money wise, I had no money. I was living in an house, I was paying for most of it at the time, and 400 quid at that point, somewhere in my mind, resonated and thought, that can help me out, that. And I don't know why, because if we look at it, but what the fuck is 400 quid in the big scheme of things now? The story that I'm going to tell you, and the people that I've hurt, and the trust that I've lost, and the friends that I've lost, and everything for the sake of 400 quid straight away. Absolutely shocking. So I've accepted it. I've said, right, okay, I will do, but you'll say no more. So I said, right, well, what's the logistics here? What's the dynamics? And he said, right, I'm going to give you a mobile number. He gave me a mobile number. On a piece of paper. I was due to finish a couple of hours later, mate. I've gone out of the prison still with this number in my pocket. And I've looked at it in the car and I thought, I'm now in, someone's expecting me to ring them. So I've gone to the local phone box. We had phone boxes in them days, thinking I was a clever bastard that no one would be able to trace me. And I've rung this number from a phone box, and someone answered, and I said, and they said, are you Lee? I said, yeah. Right, meet us at the junction hotel. We'll be there in 10 minutes. I said, right, well, all right. Well, it's going to take me a little bit longer. I needed to go home. I can't remember what I had to go home first, and then go to the junction. I've got there. I've pulled into the car park. Now I'm on serious schizophrenia alert here. I'm thinking, because like I said, I make a flippant decision. That could have been a setup. It could have been a ploy to get me, to kidnap me. It could have been a ploy to stab me, shoot me, whatever. But I had no, like I said, I'd lost all plot at that point, Steve. Full-blown alcoholic, hated the job, stress head, dickhead, whatever you want to call it. And I pulled up next to a car. 2 lads are in it, hooded tops on and whatnot. Wound our window down. Lee, I said, yeah. Took the package in my car and chucked me a load of rolled up notes, 400 quid in rolled up notes. So it was a case of, oh, what have I done now? Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm goosed here now. I've done it. So what I should have done is just chucked them and taken the consequences, but I didn't. I now had a moral obligation to the lad inside, a moral obligation to the lads that have just paid me, and I was powerless now to what was about to happen, I think. So the morning has come. I've gone home that night. Sorry, I'll tell you the story of that night. Obviously, I drove around for a while thinking, what the fuck am I going to do with this? Got home. The missus was there. Went to run a bath. Now, it wouldn't be. I'd have a bottle of red wine a night. I'd pretty much done half a bottle of red wine before I'd even got out of the bath, mate. On to the second, which was, the nerves, the paranoia. Couldn't sleep that night, so I'd on the night nurse, to which I then had to go and sleep. And then I'm going to work the day after, and I've now got a package down my pants. The dynamics of this is that I'd only ever been searched, say, 3 times in 3 years working in there. So my betting brain said, you'll probably be all right, to be honest, to get away with it. Because like I said, I wasn't thinking straight. I mean, what rationale is that? Thinking, well, I've only been searched 3 times. I'm now agreeing to take a mobile phone into a prison. And so I've got into the prison, gone through the security gates. Everything's fine. Gone onto my wing. As I'm walking into the door, the cell that I need to be delivering it to is facing me as I walk in, and the lad stood at the window, and he's kind of looked at me and gone like that, and I've nodded back as if to say, yeah, I've got it. Gone onto the landing. Now, I couldn't do it straight away because I had jobs to do, some admin, the board for seeing people off. So I had to wait till everyone's gone to work, and then I went into his cell, literally hands down my pants, threw it at him and said, that's it, no more. 400 quid in my car. Now, totally honest with you now, mate, I knew full well that wasn't it by that point, because I'd played so many scenarios out in my mind. I knew deep down, even though I was saying I wasn't going to do it again, I knew I'd do it again, because I'm not going to lie, 400 quid. I was seduced by the money then, I think, or the feeling of getting money, or the feeling, I'm not going to lie, even the buzz of doing it, it's that adrenaline thing again, what's just decision making, adrenaline. I got a buzz off it, I'll be honest with you, even though it was morally wrong and it was horrific. But I'm guessing that's what my brain was doing. It was saying, yeah, fucking hell, that was buzzing. But there we go. I've done it. I've done the deed.
I mean, that is powerful. And people are saying that in the chat. It's a powerful, powerful story. So you've got your first 400 quid. You know, your personal life is suffering as well. Your health suffering. You know, you're paranoid. It's entering this whole new world. But by your own admission there, you've just said, you know, you knew that wasn't going to be the last time you did it. So how did it progress?
Maybe about, so nothing more was said really for, I'd say about 2, 3, 4 days, something like that. So I've then got in to do what we call cell checks, which you go in, it's pretty much a nosy around the pad, check everything that's, you know, in order, and you go in and do that in every cell every day. And I think it was my first shift back of having maybe a couple of days off, and I've gone in, and the 2 lads are in there this time, so there's another dynamic, there's someone else in there, and the door's kind of half ajar, half shut. And the same lad who asked me the first time said, I need you to do that for me again. At that point, I've kind of turned around and said, what? And because there's somebody else listening in at this point. Now, obviously, he's told that they're aware of what's going on. They've both been using this mobile phone. I need you to do that for me again. I said, well, hang on a minute. It was to ring your dad. Well, yeah, but I need another. I need you to do it. I've got another. This time, he said, I'll give you 500 quid for doing it. So the stakes have gone higher. Now I know that it was bullshit. And I'm thinking, oh, fuck. But again, like I said, subconsciously, you know, the money's been put in my mind now, 500 quid. Now I've pretty much just earned my month's wage within, if I agree to do this, within two parcels taken into a prison. So by that point, like I said, I was powerless. I think I've walked out of the cell at that point to kind of save face. I've gone back later on and said, right, okay, when? You know, the money's now, I'm dare I say it, pissed with money. So I've gone back in and said, right, how's this going to happen? Same as last time. So that night, so we're probably talking 4 days later now, that night, same drill again, same people, and this time 500 quid in my hand. Package was slightly bigger, although still of them. I never had anything to do with packages or touching anything or whatever. It was purely, I was purely a transit, shall we say. So another, same drill again, 500 quid. Same drill again, gone in the morning, wait till everything had quietened down, into the cell, there you go, no more said.
500 quid, you know, is a lot of money, let's face it.
Yeah.
And you've already told us what you were getting paid on a, you know, on a monthly basis. Why continue? And especially knowing that, you know, that the prison system do spot checks. There was always the opportunity of getting caught. Was it just simply that adrenaline rush that you were getting? I
think, looking back on it now, mate, I think it was, like I said, decision making had gone because my mind was ogled with booze, prescription drugs, in the sense the doctor had prescribed me some anxiety stuff. So I really wasn't looking after myself, and I think I was literally taken in by the money and the adrenaline and the buzz. And what happened, obviously I was getting my job become easier in the sense on the wing that, I mean, look at me, how stupid is this? Looking back on it now, it must have been so obvious to people what was going on, because I was like the golden child on the wing then. If there was ever any issues, I'd have to just rock up and it'd be resolved, as in, you know, because the lads obviously on the wing then were using these phones or later on the drugs. So it was a case of, look, if there's any problem with Lee or there's any issue, you fucking leave it, you know, because he's our lad. So I think my job become easier in that sense, but then I become secluded by being involved in this criminal kind of world, shall we say, or this greed.
I mean, it didn't just go on for another, you know, 2 or 3 times. How long did it actually go on for?
I'd say it was going on for about a good year, mate. Something like that. I know, so, I mean, which is.
You're talking in the region of what, 8 to 10 grand in the course of a year?
Yeah, probably more. I'd say probably more than that, mate. Because at one point we weren't just talking one a week. We were, because there's a bigger faction coming to this where I'm going to tell you now that those connections that we were talking about there were Merseyside connections. Like I said, like I described earlier on, two big factions in there were Manchester, Liverpool. Manchester at that point were hitting the news for a lot naughtier stuff, shall we say.
But yeah, I mean, I did the Massey book. I mean, Gunchester. Yeah. You had, you know, I'm good friends with Darryl Laycock. You had the Gooch. Yeah, you had the Doddington. You had, you know, you had the Salford boys. I mean, Manchester was it was Chris and Gunchester.
It was a rough old shop, wasn't it? So this connection that I'm talking about, where I've done these for, and I'm doing 1 or 2 a week for, was Liverpool side of things, and I was approached by someone from the Manchester side of things, one of the big ones, that said pretty much, I mean, you know, I'm not going to lie, I wasn't threatened. You know, I didn't have no one said I'm going to come round, I know where you live, and fucking pop your mum and dad. You know, so there's none of that involved. I'm not going to go down that route of I was pressured into it that way. But what come about was, listen, Lee, we know what's going on. You know, we know what's going on the wing, and we know you're involved with Liverpool. We now want you to work for us. And it was like, oh, shit. And at that point, I thought, oh, fuck, I'm in serious deep here. But again, you know, I mean, what do you say? When you're doing what I'm doing anyway, I've obviously lost all touch on reality, morals. I didn't care for the people around me. I didn't care for myself, number one. I didn't care for who I was going to hurt, what I was going to lose. Deep down in the back of my mind, because I told you I was on a trail of destruction, I knew that this was going to end in tears. But I don't know. I just didn't know how to stop it. What I should have done.
In for a penny, in for £500.
Well, exactly that, mate. You know, and like you said, you do get, you know, seduced by it, and you know, you kind of have this big bravado about him. And don't get me wrong, I was cash rich, you know, so there's that side of it where I could now afford things that I'd never been able to afford. So it all plays into the greed pot again, doesn't it? Of fucking stupidity. But I knew full well it was going to end at some point. But when they've said that, we want you to work for us, it was like, you will be working for us. So because we know what you're up to.
Was there any time when your work colleagues, I mean, obviously, you know, you've gone from, you know, going into the job, suddenly you're the don of the wing, really, because the prisoners are all accepting of you. They stop doing what they're doing when you're in town because, you know, you're their man who's bringing in contraband. But was there any time that some of your work colleagues were going, did anybody have a question yet at any point and go, or was it becoming more apparent, you know, that there's phones and various other things on the wing, where people not going, you know, who's bringing this in? Was there never an eye of suspicion on you?
I would say yes, because I've spoken to a few prison officers who I worked with after the job. Yeah. You know, when I've come out of all this, and, you know, people who actually worked on a wing with, so obviously I was massively guilty to them for, and they said, look, we knew what was kind of going on, but we didn't in a certain way. We just knew that he was a golden child. Everybody used to call me, you know, Dave-O instead of Mr. Davis. But that was, you know, young lad lingo, isn't it? You know, when you get a 21-year-old lad, I kind of indulge myself in that to try and be one of the lads, you know, rather than stand, like I've told you from day one, before I was corrupt, I didn't like this kind of stand back, stern face, Mr. Davis attitude, you know, arms folded. So I think that was a problem. I think for the fact that, I'll tell you a story, one of the lads at one point was in a cell with like a blade, and he was telling other prison officers that he was going to kill himself, he was going to slice himself. And I think I'd come in at dinner time on an afternoon shift. The prison governor had come down to see him and said, what's all this about? And he said, listen, I'm not going to fucking speak to any of you lot. Because I think somebody had been pissing him off, or he'd been taken off a job. In fact, I think that was it. I think he'd been taken off the cleaners. And he said, I'm going to kill myself. Fucking had enough of you. I won't speak to any of you. The only person I want to speak to is Lee. And again, as other members of staff, they must have been thinking, well, why does he only want to speak to him? So, yeah, there were little triggers there. I'm now told that people were slightly aware of it. I mean, I was obviously under investigation anyway, but there was 2 members of staff that were told to watch me, but they never found anything. They never seen me doing anything untoward. And I know this after because I've spoken to them. So they were technically in there as moles. So, yeah, there must have been suspicions, mate.
Yeah, I can
Plus the
imagine
plus as
so,
well,
mate. Yeah.
the fucking wing stunk of cannabis on a night. There's a reason why everybody was chilled out.
So obviously, all good things, inverted commas, come to an end. How did it come to an end for you?
So we'll fast forward how it's going to come to an end. So that's been going on for a while, yeah. So I'm involved with the Manchester side of things. I've now really stressed out with the job, mate. I've got a load of money, as in I'm cash rich, but I can't do all with it. I've really got fucked off with the job. My relationships with my missus is pretty much gone, on the rocks, shall we say. I don't socialise anymore, and I thought, I've had enough of this crap. I've got enough money now, maybe just to walk away. But again, do you know, I mean, how stupid is this? What I always used to think in my mind, how do I tell my mum and dad that I'm going to leave the prison service? I mean, who cares? But because I was that fucked in the head at that point, I used to think, well, if I tell them that, how am I going to explain why I'm leaving? Because I didn't want to admit the fact that I was struggling in the job. I'd never told anyone that I was struggling, and that hated it, and that hated what I was doing, because there was only me involved with what I was doing. So it was a case of the Manchester side of things. One of the lads had got into trouble. And when I say trouble, I mean, obviously, this thing's a business in jail, isn't it? To which I contribute to, stupidly enough. Put a lot of people in danger, put a lot of people's families in danger. You know, if you look at the bigger picture, the ripple effect of me taking a phone in could be catastrophic. But again, I wasn't saying that at the time. What I was saying was 500 quid. You know, I mean, how selfish is that? So he'd got in trouble on the wing, presumably owing people money, or bigger people money on the outside. He'd asked to be put in healthcare. Now, when a prisoner has to be put in healthcare, it's because they're either genuinely sick, which a nurse would put them in healthcare, or if they're kind of get onto the healthcare, you've got to be now thinking, well, he's kind of escaping something here. He's wanting to hide. Why is he wanting to hide? So he's gone to healthcare. Listen to this, is crazy story. I'm in the middle of this, mate. I've taken a week off and I'm sat in the garden. It was around about early summer, beautiful weather. I've gone to the shop, opened the newspaper. I'm not going to tell you what newspaper it is. Opened the newspaper with a can of beer in my hand. You know, like I said, I was a full-blown alcoholic at that point. So I was sat in the garden, 11 o'clock in the morning. I've opened the red top newspaper, and there's a mid-page spread, mobile phones in UK jails. And I've looked at it and I thought, oh, that's an interesting topic. I've looked at the picture. It's the lad who's put himself on healthcare. He's in the top left of the fucking mid-page spread. It's the lad that I'm dealing with. So I'm now thinking, oh, shit's gone wrong here. So I've read the article and it said, well, actually, this is based in Lancaster Castle, because he was taking pictures of himself in cells, you know, and sending them out to presumably girls or whoever, you know, look at me, I'm in prison. The press had got hold of it. He'd been obviously called in by the governor and said, fucking, what are you up to? I know what's happened after that, but I'll tell you about the newspaper first. So I'm now thinking, oh, Christ, it's so much wrong here, so much wrong. I still had 3 packages in my house at that point, Steve, to get rid of. I know, yeah. Well, you know what's coming, don't you? I mean, you can't write this shit. So I've had 3 packages in my house ready to go. Now, I'm not going to lie to you. At that point, I knew I was taking cannabis in, because we're all fairly rum lads. I know what cannabis smells like. I could smell the packages. You know, I'm not going to tell you what else was in there, because I really don't know. I just know I could smell cannabis. So I know now there's cannabis as mobile phones. So I thought, I'm back in work. I think it was not the next day, the day after, maybe something like that. And I thought, I need to get this shit out of my house, because obviously things are going sour quickly. So, well, you know what I'm going to say, don't you? So I've put all 3 packages down my pants, strapped them to myself, gone in work on an early shift the morning after.
Walking like John Wayne.
Oh, mate, well, yeah. I mean, if any girls had seen me, they'd have thought, bingo. Bingo, Dirk Diggler's in town. So yeah, I've gone in there, swinging it, as you do. Obviously super nervous now going through the gate. I've driven into the car park, paranoid to death, night nursed up the night before, pissed as a fart the day before, just to try and get to sleep, and walked on through the security doors, having looked around the car park, thinking, is there anything untoward here? Is there anything that I don't know about? And I've gone through the first security gate. Second security gate is, if you go past, you're now committing offence. The first one is just a reception. The second one, you're now committing offence. 10 years in jail for anyone caught with contraband. So I've looked at that on the way in and thought, nah, it's not a problem. Gone through, got the radio, did the radio check, got the keys, thought this is like the last run. Thank God. Maybe it would have been, maybe it wouldn't. But in my mind, it was the last run. Because the paper had shit me up. I'm not going to lie, the paper, I thought, oh no, we're done. We're knackered. Walked on, the doors opened down the corridor. And it's my boss, who I play football with at dinner time. And he said, Lee, have you got a minute? And I thought, now initially, a lot of people would think, oh, you know, your game's up now, mate. But it wouldn't. You would always, sometimes you would have a little chat with someone on the way in and said, you know, do you know there's been a fight on the wing last night? Do you know there's been a fire or whatever? So it's not untoward that someone would say, have you got a minute? And he said, come in here a minute. Have you got a minute? I said, yeah, what's up? And he went, I don't want to have to ask you this, but have you got anything on you that you shouldn't have? You know, pretty much matter of fact like that. And I went, no, like what? I tell you what bag I did have. I had a little, you know, like a little sports bag, Newcastle bag.
Yeah.
Sandwiches in. So I am true to the core, mate, you know. So he said, I'm gonna ask you again, have you got anything on you today that you shouldn't have? And I said, no. And he went, okay, I'm gonna have to take you upstairs. There's a Northwest search team waiting for you, and they want to conduct a search. And I thought, well, and then I just knew. I thought, well, it's up now, isn't it? This is it. So I've walked up the stairs, still with my bag. There's two more people joined in behind us, obviously to make sure that I don't do a dart, to which I wasn't going to do. Couldn't do anyway, and I couldn't get out. Fucking prison, for Christ's sake. So they've took me into a corridor. There's two sniffer dogs there, and three search officers. And I said, just bear with me. I said, I'm going to take out what you want. I said, you know, I'll game up basically. So I took me things out. I gave them what they wanted. And they said, you know, the protocol, we're still going to have to search you, full search, naked and all that jazz. I said, yeah, that's fine, not a problem. I've gone into a governor's office, and at that point, there was two big FD screws there, and they were firing all kinds of questions at me. You know, who are you involved? We know what you're up to. We know you're involved with, etc. The governor sat there saying, who are you working for? And I don't know why. I just said, look, lads, I'm really, really sorry. I'm not going to say anything now. I'm going to wait to see the solicitor. And I sat there, excuse me, and I've said it on a couple of occasions. It's the God's honest truth. I sat there, probably the calmest I've ever been in the past year to 18 months, because I knew that the game was up. I knew I was going to prison. I knew I'd lost everything, but I didn't have that, maybe the guilt, maybe the angst, I didn't have that issue anymore. It was taken away from me. Weirdly enough, I know it's going to sound weird, but I knew I was going to prison, but I'm sat there calm. What do you say to that?
I mean, it's a staggering story, and just going through that from your perspective must have been, I guess, in a lot of ways, it must have been a relief, because of everything that had gone on. I think, you know, that huge weight that you had on your shoulder, which was turning you to drink, making irrational decisions. Suddenly, the game's up, and you're out of this. But I guess that leads to another set of problems, which means that you now know that the full weight of the law is going to come down on you. So what was the next step for you?
The next step is, so I said, obviously the police are called. They came into the prison. By this point, the prison's opening up. So you've got all kinds of prison officers coming through the gates. Obviously, the wing that I work on is now thinking, well, Lee's not turned into work. Where's he at? So people are now asking about me. Why have I not come? The police have arrived. It's two young police officers that I recognised from going out in town, similar age to myself. And obviously, they've just been called into the prison. They don't particularly know what's gone on. And they've said, is everything all right? And I've kind of gone, well, not really. They've then had a chat with, obviously, the governor and said, right, okay, we understand the implications of this. If I go out into the yard now in cuffs, the whole jail is going to be talking about it. And the last thing they want, from a prisoner point of view, from a staff point of view, is knowing that I've been taken away in cuffs So they said, we won't put cuffs on you. We'll wait till we get outside. So just get into the car with us, which isn't, again, it's not untoward that a prison officer would go out with coppers, you know, to questioning or a police station or wherever. So I've driven out the gates. They've put cuffs on me like a band cuff. They've said, we can't take you to the police station. We're off to another job. There's a van here for you in the car park. Took me out of the car. One copper, big burly fucker, dragged me out of the back of the van with the cuffs, as in pretty much to my knees. And I looked at him and I said, what the fuck are you doing? He'd obviously got wind of what's going on. So that was the start of the police journey. Got down to the police station. Same again. He dragged me out of the back of the van again. Now I've now got grazes on my arms and stuff. And I'm thinking, so I've had a scuffle with him in the what do you call it? The sterile area. Police have come down and say, whoa, what's going on? What's going on? I said, well, you need to sort your fucking idiot boy out here. Taking me in. Again, I knew a lot of the police staff there, so all the things of, you know, forget the greed and all of. Now there's big guilt, thinking, oh my God, what have you done, boy? You know, all these people know my family. That's where the guilt probably started to kick in. You're allowed one phone call, so I was signed in and then just left in the cell for maybe 4 hours. But because I'd gone in there with prison officer uniform on, you know, big black epaulets, I looked like a policeman. So loads of people in the police station have now recognised that, and they're banging on the doors. There's a fucking pig in here. There's a pig in the police station. He's in the cells. So you're dealing with that, and I think it's really started to hit home then. So I've laid on a concrete bench, and then just started to think, what's going to go on here? I didn't think I'd see daylight again. I thought they'd send me straight to remand, but you're allowed one phone call. So I said, can I ring my mum, please? Rung my mum, and my mum said, is everything all right? Liz, you know, your girlfriend's just rung you. Apparently you're at the police station. I said, yeah, don't worry about it, mum. I'm just down at the police station. You know, I'm just doing some questions and whatnot, you know, completely lying out of my backside. Because at that point I thought, well, I couldn't deal with it. I only had a minute or two. I couldn't explain everything what I'd done in a minute or two. So I just said, I'm here doing some questions for police, mum. I'll ring you in a bit. Now, unbeknownst to me, everybody already knew, and there was a whole different backstory going on outside already, to which is quite phenomenal. So I'm sat in that cell now till 6 o'clock at night, waiting for a solicitor, and they took me into an interview around about, I think it was at maybe 7 or 8 o'clock at night. So I'd spent a full 12 hours sat on a concrete bench thinking about what was going to happen to me and about what I'd done and what I'd committed. Solicitor said, you need to get a proper solicitor for this. It was only the duty solicitor. So he said, my advice to you at the moment, just for this, is to go no comment. So we've gone into the interview with a man and a woman, good cop and bad cop it was, literally, you know, textbook stuff. And they were firing all kinds of weird shit at me, that I was involved with gangs in London, that I was involved with a ring of prison officers doing it, and I was the leader. And the shit they were coming out with blew my mind, as in, where is this coming from? Because it was just me. I had no involvement with anyone else. But they were trying to, and I mean, obviously it's a police tactic, isn't it? They try and, if you chuck that much shit at a wall, some of it will stick. So I think they were trying to put me into a scare scenario where I would say, oh, do you know what? I've done this and I've done that, and I know him and I know him. But I didn't. I just thought, nah, not for me. So I no commented all the way through. And then come the time where the interview finished, and they said, right, we're going to give you bail. And I was like, didn't expect that. You know, they didn't take my passport off me or anything. So I could have just buggered off, really. You know, I mean, it would have been a life on the run for the sake of it, but I could have buggered off. So yeah, so they released me, and I said, right, okay, can I go now, please? And they said, your dad's waiting outside. I said, sorry, who? You know, when you just think, oh no, now it is real. I've got to explain this to my dad. And I opened the door, and I still at that point had my little Newcastle rucksack, mate, and looked at my dad, and I expected him to either chin me or just, I don't know, just to go mental on me. But he didn't. He's a cool man, far cooler than me. And he said, look, you know, obviously you've had a better day, haven't you? I bet you've had better days than this. He said, come on. So I've got in the car, and he said, we're going to go up to see your mum. He said, she knows that you're in the police station and you're in trouble. She doesn't know what for, but we're going to go up and we're going to speak to her. And he said, tell me now. He said, tell me what's gone on. And I said, so I just told him the truth. I said, look, I've been doing this and I've been doing that. And I said, it's not good, Dad. And he said, what are we looking at? Are you going away? I said, yeah. And I said, probably for quite a while. To that point, I didn't know what. I mean, I had figures in my mind of 8s and 9s, but I said, yeah, it's going to be that, mate. And it's not good. So I got into my house. My mum's obviously in tears, in bits. I mean, that broke me inside, watching my mum and dad go through that. But again, listen, the only man who's caused that is me. And I think that's the worst part about it. I think when you go through trauma or when you go through situations, the worst part is that when you look in the mirror and the only person to answer to is you, I think it adds an extra level of sadness and regret.
The thing that really struck me about your story, though, was there was an even more awkward twist in this, wasn't there? Because you thought that the only person who would know about this was your mum and your dad, but it turned out that your girlfriend knew as well. Well,
yeah. So I'm sat on the settee, breaking my mum's heart and my dad's heart by telling them that, because if we look at the outline of who I was at that point, or who society thought I was a good sportsman, a likable lad, a popular lad in the sense of I knew a lot of people playing football, and it's a good social network, isn't it? I was a fireman, so I saved lives. I locked bad people up. I was, you would look at a pillar of the community and you would suggest that I probably was that on the outside, all fake as shit. But so then breaking my mum and dad's heart, because they're not of criminal background, they've never been in trouble. They play everything literally straight down the line. So I've then sat down, told them, mum's in bits. There's then a bang at the door. Girlfriend has come flying through the door with her mum, who, like I said, was a prison officer. So the morning I've got tugged, I've gone into the police station thinking I just have to explain to my mum, and then I'll work on the lies that I can tell my girlfriend at the time. Because I was still, listen, like I said, I was fucked up. I was an idiot. Still trying to worm my way out of things rather than just coming clean and telling everyone what had gone on. I was still trying to think I'll worm my way out of some of this, chance it again. So she's come flying in. She's gone for me, to which I fully expected, because, she's now knows that I've been arrested. And mum's come in calling me all sorts. She said, you're this, you're that. And my girlfriend said, and you've been sleeping with. Now, what we don't know is the fact that there was a woman on my wing that I was having an affair with. Behind my girlfriend's back. I know, yeah. I mean, listen, how I had the time to do all this and how I even managed to get in bed, and do anything, with all that going on.
Yeah.
And without Viagra. So how that's gone on. So she's got laid into me, and lo and behold, that morning, because her mum works in the prison, the girl has gone to the governor who I was sleeping with and said, I'm nothing to do with what he's going on. I'm just sleeping with him. So my girlfriend's mum's got hold of it, because the governor's friends with my girlfriend's mum. He said, well, apparently he's sleeping with X amount. She's gone and told my girlfriend who was in work. She's come out of work, flown up, and now I've completely lost everything. I've lost mum, dad, career, self-respect, prospects, freedom, everything all in one day has now gone tits. And subsequently an house and car.
So obviously that, your life's come crashing down around you now, and there's nobody to blame but yourself. It's damage limitation. Yep. You're lucky that you've got your liberty, albeit on bail. The build up to the court case, I can imagine, was quite a stressful period. You're still trying to live your life. You're trying to piece your life back together. I think the one bit of fortune you did have was that you were still getting paid by the prison service.
I was, because this is crazy, isn't it? If you think of the crime that I've committed there, you'd think it would be a straight strike off, wouldn't you? Mm. And because I'd not been, although I'd been caught red-handed, technically, I'd not been through courts. Now, at that point, they couldn't sack you unless you'd been tried by a judge, even though it's classed as misconduct. Now, whether they wanted to keep me on board to see if I would give them information or whatever, but I was still being paid for a year until I went to jail. So I was sat in my house, now with obviously massive alcohol problems, like I've said, having gone through that day of hell, lost liberty, it really upset everyone, lost everything in my life. I'm still now sat there with, I think at the time, maybe 1,300, 1,400 quid a month in my hand. to with not a lot to do. You know, I wouldn't go out because I didn't. It was now a story in the town. I wouldn't want to go out and you know, kind of put myself on the street because people would be coming up to me. Fucking hell, I've heard what's going on, mate. What can we do? You know, what's going on with it? You know, and a lot of people ignoring me. You know, people who are classed as maybe pals, associates, would turn their nose up at me, and it's a tough one to negate. So I locked myself in a room pretty much for a year. You know, with medication, with copious amounts of alcohol. Now we're now doing bottles of whiskies and, you know, all this kind of stuff. And I unfortunately fell into the trap of cocaine, to which I'm not going to lie, I tried like any man from our era. You know, I'd been out on the club scene, the party scene, you know, like I said, going out in town. I knew people that did it. I tried it. You know, I'd been out in the nightclubs. I wasn't stupid. But instead of using it as I don't know, shall we say, an enhancer, I was now using it to kind of just level my head because I'd be pissed all night. I think when we look at the neurological side of things, my brain thought, what makes you feel better? Well, like we all know, what I should have done is knock the booze on the head, go exercising, engage in purposeful activity, but I didn't. Your brain wants a quick fix. And I'm a person that wants a quick fix, as I've described with my decision-making process with fire brigade and football. So my brain turned to pissed all night on the whiskey, would sleep it off, then I would feel horrific. So I'd go and buy cocaine, take cocaine, then you would start to come down off that paranoid schizophrenia and all that. Then medication, then at night, alcohol again, and alcohol all day. And it just become a year of absolute debauchery. Because let's face it, I didn't know if I wanted to get through that year. I knew what was coming. So I guess I was just kind of blocking out the inevitable, which I know a lot of people will relate to. And, you know, it doesn't have to be, you know, prison related or prison related, as in going to prison. A lot of people go through that in daily life, don't they? I've been through that in daily life.
So take us to that day in court. From your perspective, you know, you'll have by this time researched what you can get. What kind of sentence were you expecting?
Well, the said red top paper, I'll give you this one. The red top paper that I read in the Garden said I was getting 10 years. So again, I read that, but when you actually look into it and the wheres and what fors, I think the maximum I could have got was about 6. And on a good day, I could have got a 3. And on a real bad day, maybe 4 or 5. So I was hopefully aiming for around about a 3.5, because the judge that had been with me he'd given me good vibes in the sense of he was happy that I'd given obviously guilty pleas, which I couldn't do anything, you know, I had to go guilty. He was happy with what I was saying. He was happy with the fact that I was taking it on the chin. And I think he had a slight hint of empathy, dare I say. And I think he'd maybe put it in, and I'm only second guessing here, mate. I mean, this is me, you know, thinking after the event. I think he's gone into the Crown prosecution and said, because they were trying to do deals with me throughout, to which I know and you know, if I'd have started chopping in there, I mean, this is the one good thing that I've had from this. I've never had any grief from it. I never expect any grief because I never mentioned anyone at any point. What I did was purely off my own back, and there was never a name mentioned on my part. And that stood me in good stead later on in prison, strangely enough. So yeah, so where was we with that? We've gone to the courts. I was looking at maybe a 3.5 in my mind, and the courts have rung me and they've said, your trial will now be heard at Preston Crown Court, because it was actually in Lancaster Crown Court, because there was one in the castle. They said it's now been moved. Now let's say I expected to go to jail. They said it's been moved 2 weeks. So I've still had some cash in my burner. I've now been given 2 weeks stay of execution. And I thought, fuck it, I'm going to go on holiday. So I went on holiday to Egypt with a girl, you know, just to, I don't know why, just to take my head away for a week. Because I expected to go, bag was packed and everything, mate. I was like a little boy going on a camp. So I've gone on holiday, come back, went to court in Preston. It was due to be heard, I think, on, let's say it was a Friday at 9. I've gone in and they've said Judge such and such is now looking at it. And I thought, well, that doesn't sound right. And I thought, how can you do that? We've done a year's worth of Mags Court, Crown Court. interviews, and all of a sudden this lady's name's come up, and I'm like, no, that's not my judge. No, 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 no. Anyway, I've gone into the courtroom because you have to go in, and she said, I'm Judge such and such. I've looked at your case over the last week, and I'm not sure what she told me, a new arsehole, mate. And I mean, fair play to her. Listen, what I did was wrong, but she proper went to town on me about destroying lives and corrupting young men. And I thought, well, there we go. But that's a story for another day. And she said, well, I just don't know what to do with you. I need a few more hours to decide. So I was like, I just expected to go down in the cells. Bearing in mind, I knew a lot of the cell staff at Preston, so they were all like, Lee, what's going on? I said, I've no idea. The crazy old bird said she wants 2 more hours. So she's let me out of the dock. And I'm thinking, So my dad's there. He said, what do you want to do? Lo and behold, Preston Crown Court. There's a Wetherspoons round the corner. What do you do when you've got an hour's worth of living? Went for 2 pints of Guinness. With my dad and my mum, and then went back into the dock, and she's written me the riot act again. Given me the riot act again. She said, I can see no less than, obviously consecutive, concurrence, everything. All in all, 4 years on exactly. And I thought, we've had a bit of a shit one there. But anyway, you take it on the chin, don't you? Go down to the courts. Obviously, my mum and dad are in bits. All my friends were there. There was a lot of prison staff, a lot of police staff, because they were interested in the case, a bit of media. And it was one of them, back down into the cells now. So now the reality does hit home, because you think, shit, where am I going? What prison am I going to? Now, I had it in my mind that I'd be going to Preston prison, which is 10 minutes from the court. So I'm expecting to get on a van and get straight to prison. I'm left in the cells for a good 3 or 4 hours past court shutting time. And all the while I'm asking the girls in the court, where am I going? They said, we don't know where's going to accept you. And you know as well as I do, I don't know if people know out there, but prisons are very similar to hotels. You need to be accepted by the governor, and nowhere would take me because A, of my job, because they were worried about a prison officer being on the landing, and B, because they perceived that I had links within these prisons, so therefore I could be up to anything, which was absolute bollocks. So I sat in the Crown Court for however long, probably till 7:30, 8 at night, and they said, right, we know where you're going now. I said, where am I going? They said, Shrewsbury. And I was like, where the hell is Shrewsbury on this planet? Do you know what I mean? They said it's in Shropshire, and I said, go on, tell me again, where's Shropshire? So it was like, right, well, it's 3 hours away, and this is now like 7:30, 8 at night. So you know as well as I do, prisons lock up at 8 o'clock. So I'm on this bus now down to Shrewsbury. There's only me on it, and I'm in literally a cabin. I don't know if anybody's been in a prison bus out there, but you're literally on a seat and you're enclosed, and there's a tiny little window to look out. So that's my first introduction to prison life and again, it's all thinking time, and it's all reflection time. It's all time to get upset or time to get in the zone. With my feet pressed up, and I thought, and my mum and dad don't even know where I'm going at that point, because I've just found out. So obviously they're at home scared shitless. They've not heard from me, because I said, as soon as I get to prison, I'll make sure, because I knew prison rules. I said, I'll make sure I speak to you, and I'll make sure you know where I am. So I've managed to get to Shrewsbury prison. The gates have opened, and it's a little tiny reception area, and there's 2 prison officers in there. Now everything's in darkness now because the prison's shut. It's all shut up for the night. All the boys are behind the door. I'm now technically a special admission, albeit not special. And so when I've gone through, there's 2 prison officers there, and they said, right. And I said, I'm prisoner, Lee Davies. And they went, we know exactly who you are. In that manner. Oh, cheers for that, mate.
Sorry, mate.
Can we have that other one back? He was more handsome than this one. So yeah, but it, the stark contrast of that picture there to when I first joined, it gives you an idea of of what that can do and what kind of stress I was putting myself under by partaking in what I was doing. You can clearly see it there. I do not look a well man. Exactly that. I mean, look at that. Mm-hmm. Not well. So they've said, yeah, we know exactly who you are. And I was like, oh, here we go with this. Because that's going to be a big issue for me, really. I've let the prison service down and I've let other white shirts down. I always thought, how are they going to treat me? As well as I thought I was going to get a kicking off the boys. I thought the prison staff are going to hate me. The lads are going to hate me because they think I'm a prison officer. And it's a worrying, scary shit, really, thinking of going in there as an ex-prison officer. So they've done the search again. Take your clothes off, make sure you've got nothing in the orifices. Give you your prison issue. You know, what size are you? Medium. Give me a prison corned beef shirt at extra large, so like a drowned rat. You know, what size waist are you? 32. Give you 40 pants, all to start that mental game. You know, when you get, you know, your underpants given to you, because in there you can't take your own stuff in. You know, you are in prison issue like any other prisoner. So I've said the last time I ate was, I mean, I've told this because it's quite funny, but that was my first introduction to prison life. I last ate maybe in the courts at 4 o'clock, a sandwich that you get. And they've said, have you had anything to eat? I said, no, I've been on the prison bus for 3 hours. And they've said, right, we've saved you something from the canteen. And there was a kind of slight smirk on the face when they were giving me it. And I thought, oh, here we go. So I've opened like a little, like a takeaway box. There's a fucking handful of cold chips. And I mean cold chips. You know, because obviously, I mean, the surgery has been, you know, hours ago. But I think that was kind of their way of saying, look, welcome, son. To which I took on the chin, you know, and I kind of sat there and I said, I need to speak to my mum because I need to let her know where I am. So I'm sat there with a box of cold chips, you know, my bag of underpants and toothbrush, and I got taken onto the wing. Now, I don't know if any of your viewers have seen there was a drama recently on TV called Time.
Yeah,
it's got Stephen Graham in it.
Stephen Graham was in it. It was fantastic.
Great actor. Shaun Bean, Stephen Graham, two great men. The prison they used, just to set the scene for people now, prison they use is actually Shrewsbury Prison that I was in. It's now it's now disused because it was deemed unfit for service. And I'll tell you why in a bit. Horrible. It was like being in like an oldie worldy prison. So to set the scene, I'm at the bottom of the stairs now, looking up. When Shaun Bean goes up, you know, looking up at 4 landings with a box of chips and a telephone on me right. And I've rung my mum. They've said, right, come on, be quick. And I thought, but you've got to play the game, because look, in my mind, they were trying to trigger me to lose the plot. I mean, they weren't. They were just being, listen, there was prison routine and I had to hurry up because the prison doors needed shutting because they'd stayed open for me at the end of the day. But my mind said, you're trying to trigger me here. So I just kept calm. I rung my mum and she said, hi, love, you all right? And I said, yeah, everything's good, everything's good. She went, are you safe? Are you safe? I said, yeah, everything's all right, mum. But hearing her voice inside, I'll be honest, I was breaking down inside. And I felt myself going. So I said, look, mum, I'm going to have to go now. The prison officer, and he needs me to go because I need to get locked up. And I think when I said that, I need to get locked up, I come off the phone and there's fucking tears everywhere in my eyes. I mean, thank God that there was no other lads on the wing, because to do that in front of 80 lads, if I'd have broke down, I don't know how it'd have been perceived. I mean, listen, we're all men, but I'm telling you now, it hurt inside. It was like a knife going through me. So I said to the prison officer, and fair play, he was quite decent about it. He said, just give yourself a minute or two to get yourself sorted. You know, I fucking lost it at that point, Steve.
Yeah.
So anyway, we've walked up to this 4's landing. He said, you'll be on the 4's tonight. I said, right, okay, cool. He said, you'll be in with someone. And now straight away, I thought that I might be in a room on my own. So I'm thinking, he said, you'll be in with someone. And I thought, whoa, could be anyone. You know, you don't get to choose who you go in a cell with in prison, technically. It could be anyone. It could be a fucking paedophile, a murderer. It could be someone in there. I mean, I know they wouldn't because there's security measures. It could be in there for someone who's killed a copper or a screw. You don't know. So your mind's playing gymnastics with you then. And I'm walking up these stairs. So he's opened the door and there's a lad sat at the back of the cell. Now, in that point, you could smoke in prison in them days. So there's smoke at the back of the cell. I've seen this lad sat in his seat. Now, he's quite a rum lad, quite a rum-looking lad. Scars down, big scar down here. Bald head, looks a bit menacing. Stereotypical, you know, what your mind thinks of a lad who is in prison. Now, like I've said, bearing in mind, I've just been to Egypt. So I've walked in looking like fucking Joey Essex. So I've walked in my big tracksuit, orange, straight fresh back from Egypt. And And there's a lad sat back at cell. I wonder what he's thinking. He must be thinking, what the fucking hell has just entered my cell? But I went and he said, hiya, mate, you all right? And he, in his Brummie accent. And I went, yeah, are you? And the prison officer said, right, all right, lads, I'll leave you to it. He shut the door. And when you hear that door shut behind you, you think, flip. What if this lad comes for me now? And I remember thinking, right, if he launches off his seat and we hit him with kettle, that's what I thought. I mean, how ridiculous is that? He'd have probably leathered me, but that's what you're thinking. You're on safety mode, so I'm thinking there's a kettle there. If he gets off his seat, I'll pan him with kettle. Anyway, he said, "Do you want to sit down, mate?" I said, "Yeah, I can do." Yeah, and he went, "Do you want a brew?" I said, "Yeah, I'd love a brew." He put kettle on, and he come over to me. Like, stood up then at this point, and he said, "Are you a nonce?" And I went, "What?" He said, "Are you a nonce?" I said, No, I'm not a nonce." And he went, "What are you in for?" And I said, and the first thing that come to my mind, when I'm not lying, I said, "Drugs." And that was it. And he went, "Right, because if you're a nonce, you won't be staying in here." And I said, "Trust me, mate, I'm not a nonce." So anyway, he's had a kettle. He said, "Do you want a biscuit?" I said, "Yeah, I'll have a biscuit." And then he said, "Whereabouts are you from?" I said, "Lancaster." And he went, "Why are you down in Shrewsbury then? Could you not go to Preston?" I said, "I don't know, mate. I think it was full." Because alarm bells would be ringing for someone like, why is this lad from the north of England now in Shropshire?
Yeah.
If he's not a nonce or he's not hiding from someone or there's something not right. Do you know what I mean? That'd be making people's mind thinking, So anyway, he said, "Right, you'll be on the top bunk." So, there's no option there. I couldn't pick my own bunk. He said, "You'll be on the top bunk. Have you got anything? Do you need anything?" I said, no. He went, "Have you got a toothbrush?" I said, "Yeah, I've got a toothbrush. Got me fucking knickers." And he said, "Right." He said, "I'm the cleaner on the." That's why he was asking me, because he had a stock of bits and bobs, because he was the cleaner. So the prison service have obviously trusted him to be a cleaner, which is why they've put me in with him, because he was a trusted lad and he was a good lad as well. Do you know, it made my life so much easier. Paul, if you're out there, I've never spoke to the lad since, because I didn't manage to keep in contact with him. If you're out there, mate, Merry Christmas and thanks for getting me through that first period in prison, mate, because my head would have fallen off, I think, if I didn't have you there. But yeah, he looked after me. Real good kid.
Top man. And so obviously finding your feet in prison, I guess, was probably the hardest challenge you'd ever had in your life. And, you'd be constantly aware, you're constantly paranoid about, particular situations. Did you end up in any scrapes in there, Lee?
Scrapes wise, do you know what? A few little scuffles, yeah. Because down the gym, a few little scuffles. But what it would be playing a game of football. There'd be a fucking crunching tackle 5-a-side, little scuffle with someone, and then the screw stuff would come out. "You fucking dirty screw, you're this, you're that, you're gonna get it. Luckily enough, and again, I've been really lucky in prison, in the sense of straight away I was in with that good lad. He was quite well connected on the wing. They knew what I was in for, and I'll tell you how they knew what I was in for. This is a belter, this one. This is HMP all over. The boys knew what I was in for. He was well connected, and I got in with a circle of lads that were good in the gym. And I didn't do it for any reason. I just fell naturally with these lads because I'm quite a boy's boy. So I'd sit and go and have brews with them, sit in cells, playing Monopoly and cards and whatnot. And I was accepted by, I think, the right lads at the right time. So there was never any, in that first jail, there was never any big grief. There was scuffles all the time, mate. Shitty words spoken, but I never got any serious grief. But again, that's testament to the lads that I was with, because I think nobody would have dared bother. Right, so I'll tell you how the lads found out who I was, yeah?
Yeah.
In fact, give me 2 seconds. I'm going to top myself up with one of them.
Okay, well, I'll tell you what, while you do that, I'll give a shout out to the sponsors, mate. Big shout out to Spider VPN for all your internet security. Google Spider VPN, they are the boys to trust. Happy New Year to you, lads. Thanks for your sponsorship. Glad you're staying on next year. Also, big shout out to Scott at skipsandbins.com. Telephone 0800 25 45 25 3. Email inquiries at skipsandbins.com. Website www.skipsandbins.com. Easy, contract free, and pay as you go waste collection. Thank you to you and the lad Scott. Thanks also to L&G Family Funeral Directors 01913897245 and to the Garden of Healing Dispensary CBD Hemp and Cannabinoid Specialists. You can find them at www.thegohd.com. Thanks to Chris and the lads and lasses down at Arcot Interiors for all your kitchen necessities down on Heaton Road in Newcastle. You can get in touch with them. Just Google Arcot Interiors, and once again, they come up at the top of the Google search list. qtechshop.co.uk. Big shout out to Johnny's in the chat. Hope you have a happy new year, mate. Look forward to seeing you very soon. They are the makers of pool tables and snooker tables in Wallsend, Newcastle, and also the guys who run our NUFCmatters.com website. Thanks also to Jab Signature. jabsignature.co.uk, the guys who supply a lot of my hoodies and tops, etc., but also make some fantastic gear for the boxing fraternity. Jabsignature.co.uk also produce our flyers for the show. If you're a first-time visitor to the channel, please do what 200 people have done this week, which is subscribe. Hit the Newcastle Legends logo in the bottom right-hand corner, and you can subscribe for free. We do 7 shows a week minimum. We do quite a few extra when we're able to do. So please just subscribe to the channel. Hit the thumb up below the video now to like the video. That does us a big favor. Click share to your other social media, and drop into the comments box if you want to ask a question. I've already got one pinned to the top from Proud to be a Geordie. I've got 1 or 2 from Nick on Twitter as well. So I will get them in towards the end of the podcast, because I do want to talk a little bit about Newcastle once we get to the end of Lee's story. And also available as a podcast on iTunes, Spotify, and the rest. Usually goes up within 24 hours. I'd give this one a little bit longer because Neil from Media Arts, who does upload them for us on a regular basis, is probably going to have a drink tonight because it is New Year's Eve. Big thank you to all of you out there for keeping the faith and building the channel. I am blown away and humbled every time I see the subscribers go up, and it's just nice that we will get recognised for the good content. And to hit 45,000 this year subscribers is fantastic. And as I say, we'll never take you for granted. And we've always got new ideas and new content. And I've got to say, for me true crime ones, this has hit new boundaries. And I knew it would, because Lee and I have only really started chatting over the last week, got to know each other, introduced, as I say, by padraig, but I actually, listened to his other podcasts, and I just knew this would be epic. So, Lee, thanks for sticking with us on New Year's Eve. I know we're over the first 2 furlongs. We're on to the final furlong using racing terminology. So let's get cracking. I mean, yeah, you were just about to tell us how everybody found out that you were actually imprisoned, an imprisoned prison officer. Tell us how that happened.
Right. Okay. So day 2 or day 3 in prison, they have some people may know, there are newspapers in prison. 2 of them, one of them's called Converse, one of them's called Inside Times, and they're like a little freebie newspaper that would have things like solicitors' advice in, stories from prisoners, little puzzles to do, that just freebies that get thrown under your door, to keep you busy. Day 2 or day 3, one of the prison officers come early to my door and said, "Lee, have you got a minute?" In fact, no, not Lee. Davies, have you got a minute? Let's get it right. I've called Davies in there. No one has a first name. That's the prison service for you. He said, "Davies, have you got a minute?" So I've gone out of the cell. He said, "Can I just have a word with you in the office?" And I thought, "Oh, here we go." He said, "Governor such and such would like to, the number 1 governor would like to see you." So I thought, well, maybe he just wants to ask me about, I don't know, what I've done, being a bit naive. And he said, "Right, I'm going to take you down there now, before all the prison opens up." Because me being taken off to see a governor, people would be thinking, what's going on here? So he said, "We're going to go and meet him now." So I've gone into this office area, which was mahoganyed up to death, a bit like his skin at the time. There was mahogany everywhere, plush tables. And he said, "Sit down, Lee." And I thought, why is he calling me Lee? Well, so he's produced a newspaper over this table, Inside Times. And he went, my fucking mugshot was on the front of it, like prison officer jailed. God. Because that was the big, Oh, they love it. They love anything like a copper being jailed. I mean, rightly so as well. It's big news, isn't it? You know, you don't get that every day. And he said, and I went, oh, that's a nice picture. You know, being a clever bastard that I was. I said, oh, what a nice picture, because it's the same picture that you put up. I said, oh, what a lovely picture. And he went, we've got a problem. And I said, right, go on, what's your problem? And he said, and he paused for a bit. He went, this paper, everyone's got it. I said, what do you mean everyone's got it? He went, well, one of the this bullshit, somebody's obviously done it out of being sadistic. He said, one of the night staff has distributed this under every door in the prison. And I went, sorry, what? And he said, yeah. So he said, it's in every cell at the moment, which is why we've got you out early, because, you know, this could cause a bit of an issue for you. And I went, yeah, no shit, it could. So at that point, I got me back up at that point. I'm starting to think, you're taking the piss now. You're giving me cold chips. You're putting me fucking newspaper under everyone's door. This, because it could end up, I didn't know at that point really what establishment I was in. So I thought, well, I could be getting a knife stuck in me as soon as I walk back on that wing. So, because don't forget, I'm only on day 3 now. I haven't really developed relationships with people, and neither do I understand where I am. So he said, right, what do you want to do about it? And I said, and I thought, light bulb moment. And I thought, right, I said, I tell you what, I want to go back up north. I want to go back up home. And he went, I said, I want to go to Kirkham, which is an open prison. It was never going to happen, but I just threw it out there. I thought I might try and chance my arm. And he went, I can't do that. And I said, well, I want to go back north then, somewhere north. And he said, I can't know where I'll take it. I said, well, why are you asking me what I want to do then if I can't do anything? I said, do you know what? And I did. I kind of swore at him, and I regret it, because I took my toys out again. I said, do what you fucking want. I said, I don't care. I said, but whatever happens will be on your head. And then I said to the officer, take me back to the wing. So I've gone back to the wing, and I've gone in to see my mate, you know, the lad who sat in the cell, my pad mate, and he sat there reading the news, you know, taking the piss. He sat there reading the newspaper at the back of the cell. So I've walked in, and I can see my face, and honestly, it's hilarious. He's pulled it down, and he's gone, drugs then? And I went, yes, drugs. So it was one of them moments where I was scared. Again, I was scared inside, but what could I do? So I've gone out onto the wing that morning, and obviously there's a lot of looks, there's a lot of comments, there's a lot of even prison officers looking at me, because some might not have known. So yeah, it was a difficult one, that one.
How did things progress for you, Lee, through your sentence? I mean, you got 4 years. I think most people who follow the true crime side of the channel will know that that is usually halved, unless you're an IPP, of course, which you weren't. So, you had a couple of years to do. I mean, did you decategorize? How did you work your way through the system?
They do, and I think because, like I said to you about the judge change at the last minute, 4 years is quite an important milestone in criminal terms, as in, if you were doing 3.5 years, when you hit 4 years on the on the nose, then it's deemed as a serious crime. And when I'm in a serious crime, it follows you thereafter for a very long time, on things like security checks, or, you getting a job going forward in the future, or the kind of sentence plan and probation time that you have to serve after. 4 years is a real milestone in that story. So straight away, I'd done maybe now a year in closed conditions. So I would have to serve the full 2. So really, after a year, after 6 months, I could have applied for Cat D, which I did. But the allocations officer at that point in Shrewsbury was not the most amenable kind of person, and he wasn't very supportive. Needless to say, I think he wanted me to basically do as much as I can in closed conditions. So I kept pestering him, asking him, and I kept getting the same answer: piss off, basically. After 12 months, I then I was getting nowhere with him, so I wrote to the governor. Now, bearing in mind, like I've just told you about the Inside Times, I thought, well, he actually owes me one here. So I've written to him and managed to actually get a meeting with him, and said, look, I'm getting nowhere with said officer. I feel that he's kind of using it against me because I'm an ex-prison officer. All I want to do is what I'm allowed, and I want to decategorize and go to Cat D. I'd done everything by the laws. I had no marks against me, warnings. I'd been a good boy to a certain extent. I followed the sentence plan that they set, which was laughable, really, but that's a story for another day. So yeah, I wanted what I was deserved. So lo and behold, he must have had a word with the officer, and I was allowed to apply for Cat D to go to Sudbury. They actually ask you, same again, where do you want to go? Where's 3 options? Now, my first option would have been Kirkham. They were even then, even a year after me being sentenced, they weren't moving me north. Nowhere would accept me again. So my other options were North Sea Camp in Lincoln. I mean, from where I live, mate, that's 6.5 hours. I mean, imagine that, someone's family having to travel 6.5 hours to come and see their son, because the prison service, it's not right anyway. So my choice was, in the end, Sudbury, which is in Derby. Big place, full of serious offenders, in the sense of you've got very long-term lifer units on there. You've got Cat A prisoners in there that are probably not going to see the light of day for the next 10 years. You've got lads who've just committed white-collar crimes who are in there for a month or two and then they're out. So you've got real diverse kind of prison selection. And there's a lot of gangsters from, do you know, like the Burger Bar boys and all them from Birmingham?
Yeah, from Birmingham, yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of their kind of crew and all that in there. So it was a tough one, really.
So getting ready for release, Lee, your mind clearly focused on getting out. Were you thinking about what you were going to do? I mean, this period of imprisonment and, you know, the downward spiral your life had taken, were you starting a plan? Were you doing any work within the prison? Were you doing education? What were you doing?
I did working in, I don't know if you remember the story with the copper in Sudbury. So I knew before I went to prison I would never work again in anything like fire brigades, prisons, polices, any government, anything, you know, for the Queen. So I kind of had to think of diversifying. I thought, I'm going to be an electrician. I had a lot of friends at the time who were in that trade. So I thought I need to retrain and do that. And when you go to an open prison, you can either go out doing charity work, you can go and do some education, you can enroll in a course. And I enrolled in a course in Derby College. So you would go out of prison maybe 1-2 days a week to do this. And then you would do 2 or 3 days in the prison, working in the prison, whether it be on the farms and gardens, you know, the upkeep of the prison, whether it be on the cleaning party, whether it be, you know, a whole manner of things. So I managed to get on a course in Derby College to train to be an electrician, which was going swimmingly well for probably 2 or 3 months. So I'd be nipping out 2 or 3 days a week. And I thought, that's the direction that I'm going to take when I leave prison. And do you know what? I'm making a head start in here, so ready I can hit the ground running when I get out. So again, there was a focus, there was a plan. The unfortunate thing is, things took a turn for the worse, in the sense of, what I've not told you is that in the jail that I was in previous, there was 3 coppers and a prison officer in there for doing similar things to myself. One of the policemen had followed me from closed conditions into open prison. And when we got there, I mean, like I've told you, I had no real grief in the fact of, look at the criminal mind. I was technically helping the lads by bringing in drugs. So I was kind of given a pass, I think, on that sense. But policemen in there they're a different kettle of fish, and there's a different kettle of fish with policemen, especially policemen that have been going to drugs raids and basically having drug dealers off, taking the product and the cash, keeping it for themselves, which is what these 3 lads had done. One of them had come to Sudbury with me, like I said. And when we got to Sudbury, they thought it'd be a really good idea to put him in the same cell as me. So you've got a prison officer in the cell. Yeah, I know, yeah. I mean, it's just there's so many things that are just kind of laughable about it looking back. But do you know what I mean? There's certain parts of it that could have gone really wrong, and it nearly did. Certainly for him, anyway. So we're going about our business. I'm going off to college. This lad has now got a job driving the prison minibus, i.e. taking the lads out to do charity work. So we would go out in the morning, driving his van, come back at night. And that's what an open prison is. For people who don't know, it technically is a prison of trust. You do a period of trust in there, being a good boy, and then they will let you out a day or 2 at a time to see if you come back at 5 o'clock. And if you don't, the local plod are called, and you're technically absconding. So then you would be brought back into that prison and taken back into closed conditions prison, i.e. Shrewsbury. So this one day, my life is swimming now. I've now started to get you know, town leaves, so I could go out at weekend for a day with my family, come back in at 5. I've now started to apply for home leaves, because you do a lay down period, you do so many town visits, and then you can say at some point in your sentence, you can say, I want to go home for 2 days, and they will give you a weekend at home. I mean, this is only if you've passed this is like stringent checks, you know, security, crime, contacts, and I was no real risk to anyone at that point. You know, I wasn't really involved in a massive life of crime, or so they thought. So I've now really got my life, you know, in a focus of I'm going home at Christmas for a home leave. My mum and dad are going to see me. I'm learning to be an electrician. I've done everything right. I'm free from drink. I'm free from drugs. I'm free from everything. And everything was going bang on, mate. Lo and behold, whilst I go to college, I actually work in the prison in what they call a hub. Now, these are usually run by prison officers or prison lads, and they would help lads do things like application forms, legal papers, just advice for lads who are maybe coming to prison, you know, just a bit of advice for lads and groups and chats and whatnot, just to try and take some of the strain off prison officers. So I would help in there 2-3 days a week, because obviously I knew the prison system. I was quite good at helping lads. I enjoyed helping lads and trying to get them through their sentence. So I've gone off at dinner time. I've put the PlayStation on, FIFA 2000, what would it have been? FIFA 2007, because you weren't allowed a new one, on the little PlayStation. I've put the kettle on and I've heard a bang, bang, bang on the door, and a bang, bang, bang again. And I'm like, fucking hell, I'm in the middle of a game here. You know, like really important first world problems. Fucking hell. So I've paused it, gone to the door, and there's 2 lads who I work with in the hub, and they're like, let us in, let us in. You know, like, and I'm thinking, oh, shit. Same again, paranoia. I'm like, I'll hit him with kettle. Do you know what I mean? So they've come in and sat down on the bed, and they're dead tented and like, right, this is how it is. And I thought, right, go on then. And they've said, right, we know you're a prison officer. Oh, shit. I mean, people knew anyway. You know, you could go home at weekend and Google people. It wasn't that, but I tried to keep it under wraps because there was quite a few heavy boys in there. I know, yeah, someone's just said, Ian McKenna, imagine trying to play FIFA 2007. No, yeah. I'm the interrupted
what a better team than we've got now.
Fucking right we did. The big Andy Carroll would have been up front, wasn't he, or something? Right, so they've said, right, you're a prison officer, we know that. The lads haven't really got a problem with that. However, the lad that you share a cell with, and I thought, I knew, didn't I? But I wasn't letting on. I said, right, what? And he went, he's a copper. And I was like, right, oh shit, right. Not only that, he's a what did he call it? A matrix officer, a drug copper, and he's been going out to raids, having people off, taking the boys' money, and people have recognised him in here. Some of the lads that he'd been taking money off were in Sudbury. So imagine that being a copper. The lads who you've been robbing are now in the same jail as you. They've now recognised you, and they've said, right, this is how it is. You need to get off this billet, and you don't need to be on here at 8 o'clock at night. We do not want you involved in what's going to happen. And you know what I mean? Everybody has told me to come and see you. That's all we're going to tell you. I said, why? Come on, what's going to happen? And they went, he's fucking getting it. As in, with a knife. He's fucking getting it. Make sure, Lee, please make sure you are not here. I thought, you know, where am I going to go? I'm not exactly going to nip down to Boozer, am I? It's so then become, I'm not going to lie, so they fucked off. There was a moral dilemma then of maybe a minute or two. And I thought, well, the game's up in it. I can't see any man get hurt. I can't see a lad. I mean, I've lived with this guy for a year now. I know he's got families. I know he's got kids. I know he's got a family. I've even seen his family on visits. He's a nice enough lad to me. He's never caused me any grief. But I'm not going to see anyone get hurt. So I went and saw a prison officer. Now, a lot of people will say this is a grass, but maybe I am. I don't know. But I wouldn't see anyone getting hurt. And I certainly wouldn't see anyone getting hurt to that extent. If someone was going to have a tear up with someone, I'd say, right, well, that's your business, get in the cell. You know what I mean? You sort it out between you. But I knew it was going to be a lot more sinister than that. And I don't want to see anyone hurt. And I wouldn't have that on my conscience. And let's face it, I'd done a lot of reflection in jail and realised that I wasn't making good decisions. So I went and found the prison officer. I said, I need a word with you in private. He took me into a room. We've walked, because you can walk around freely. So we've walked around the jail so it doesn't look too on top. took me into a room and said, "What's up?" And I've told him what's going to go on. Again, I didn't give any names because I didn't know any names. I just got told that was going to happen. So I've said, "This is going to happen, and I'm telling you it is going to happen. It's not a threat." So he said, "Right, come with me." He's put me straight into segregation, no questions asked. I'm segged off now in a isolated cell on my own. He's gone and got all my stuff in a fucking big plastic bag and just put it into the cell with me. And he said, "Just leave it with me." He said, "I know you're fucking raging, but," because I was like, "Hey," because me being stupid, thinking I could go back onto the wing at that point, I was putting myself in danger because people might have said, "Well, hang on a minute, he's told him because he's the only person who knows." So he said, "There's no chance of you going back on." They've dragged him in straight away from outside, took him into the seg with me, and he's come in. And this is the only bit that real grates on me in the story is the fact that, listen, I was going to lose the college course anyway because, like I tell you in a minute, I got kiboshed. But I've come in and the lad has said to me, said, "What's going on? What's the problem?" Because they'd not told him at that point, so not to worry him. So we didn't drive off thinking, "Fucking, I'm going to get killed." So they brought him back in and he said, "What's the problem?" I said, "Well, technically, mate, you're the problem." So I've told him what's gone on and he went, "All right." Cole, this is exactly what he said. Not "Cheers, Lee." "All right, where are we going?" I was like, "I've just technically fucking saved your life here and you're asking me where we're going." Knowing full well that I've lost everything. I've lost my college course. So anyway, we've been in the block for 2 or 3 days. The prison service, again now, because it's now heightened what's gone on, because there's now a threat to life. So they really don't know where to put us. We're in the block for 3 days. Eventually, we were taken out of that prison at 6 in the morning, cloak and dagger, before the prison opened, into a taxi. Didn't know where we were going, even still. We were given our mobile phone because in an open jail, you can have a small Nokia. When you go out on a town visit with no connectivity, so no internet, no nothing. So you've got contact with your family when you're out on a visit. Or if you're going to be late back to the jail, you can ring the jail and say, "Bus is late." So they've given us our phones. We were in a taxi on the way up and I turned the phone on. I've turned the phone on, there's loads of beep, 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 beep on the phone. And it's all the lads in there basically saying, "Look, Lee, we know what you've done. As in, we know you had to tell them what was going to happen. There's going to be no issues from us." And I've spoken to 2 or 3 lads. I don't know if they're watching. Matty, Tomo, Kev, they all messaged me saying, "Look, we know you had to do what you had to do. Don't worry about it. There'll be no issues where you're going on our part," which was a massive relief to me because I thought it was a grass at that point. So we're on the M1 now, mate. Now, you know what I'm thinking. Fuck yeah, we're going to the northeast.
Yeah.
So I've thought, yeah. So I'm thinking town visits. I'm thinking of town visits. We're going here.
Yeah, going to Newcastle. Go
Why
to St James's.
Oof. So anyway, we've gone up the M1 and the prison officer who was sat in the front said, "Right, lads, you go into HMP Kirk Levington, which is based in Yarm, near Middlesbrough." So, well, I mean, at that point, I didn't know where Yarm was or Kirk Levington. I've never heard of it. He said, "It's all right." He said, "It's half closed, but half open." So we get there. We've had to obviously hand our phones in. I've told my mum, I said, "I believe we're going to the northeast. I'll let you know more later on when I know." We've got into the reception. Big burly screws there. Strip searched again. Now you've got to start all the ball rolling again, your induction. And I know it sounds really weird, but you kind of get attached to the environment you're in and the lads you're with. You never become comfortable in prison because it's always on a knife edge, but you become comfortable with who you're with. You become comfortable in your routine. And now I've just been oiked out of fucking Derby. I've lost my college course. So in my eyes, I've lost my future. I mean, I know I haven't, but the way I was really focused in on that. And now I'm in a jail in the northeast, and they said, "Right, well, you're going to have to do an assessment period on the induction." And I'm like, "Well, I'm coming to the last 6 months of my sentence. Why do I need to do this? I've been a good boy all the way throughout." And they said, "Well, you've got to do it." I said, "I'm not here because I chose to be here. I'm here because technically I've been a good Samaritan, although I'm not. I've helped the prison service out by saving you, picking up blood." But they weren't having it. So I've had to do a lay down period. But I tell you what, mate, the one and only saving grace to go into Kirk Levington, they went, "There's your key." And I said, "What?" "There's your key." Because all the last year and a half, I've had to sleep in the same room, 6 foot away from someone shitting, farting, burping on me, having to watch them sit and do their business. And they've said, "There's your key to your cell." And I thought, bingo. And that in prison, mate, is one of the biggest things that you can do. I'd say it's, you know, for yourself, is to try and get a cell on your own, because you've got your own privacy back. You know, you can watch what you want on TV. You don't have to have an argument about EastEnders or Corrie or etc. etc. So big single cell on induction, but no town visits, because you've now got to do a new laydown period. And I'm like, whoa, this is not right. So I've gone down to the hub in their jail. Now it's actually run by prison officers in their jail. And I've said I've gone in and I've said, hi, my name is Lee Davies. I've come from, and the two girls behind the counter, I can only describe them, and I've said it before, Sharon and Tracy, and I mean that in derogatory terms. Sharon and Tracy were sat there and they said, yeah, we know full well who you are. And I'm thinking, oh, here we go again with this crap. So I've said, right, can I just discuss with you, and I've got paper, can I just discuss with you my home leave at Christmas? Because I told my mum and dad I was coming home for Christmas for 3 days. So my whole family had got geared up for seeing their son again in his own environment, which is big for the family, isn't it? You know, big for relatives, friends, family. It's a massive moment in anyone's sentence. And they said, you won't be going home for Christmas. And I went, sorry, what? You won't be going home for Christmas. You've not done your laydown period. So why should I have to do a laydown period? I'm here, like I've said, and I've explained to your staff already, because through no fault of my own. And the paperwork has been signed. I'm security cleared. It's been agreed. Well, where's it been agreed? I said, H&P Sudbury. Get on the phone to them. Well, that's Sudbury. That's not here, is it? Get out. That's exactly what they said. Get out. And I'm like, is this just happening to me? I've saved his life. I've come here, and now you're telling me I'm not going home to see my mum and dad for Christmas, and I just fucking lost it. And so I went back to my cell. I don't think I told my mum that night, but I started to put a real negative spin on the sentence. Then, I mean, a lot of people will say, "Listen, you deserve what you deserve," and I do. But when you've been through that year and a half of building up to that one event of being a good lad again, for then someone to just dismiss you like that because they don't like what you've done, you think, well, shouldn't you be a bit more professional? I mean, I know that's hypocritical coming from me doing what I did in the job, but yeah, so I went on with that for quite a while, mate. And to the point of, I'd gone in the next night and there was another man sat there, but one of the women, I said, is there all right? This was to the man officer. I said, can I have a word? And she said, I've told you, get out. We've spoke about this already. And I thought, wow. So anyway, I managed to collar a governor in the corridor. And I've said, can I just have a word with you, please, Governor? I said, it's a bit of a sensitive subject. And she said, right, what is it? She said, you're going to have to leave it with me. Lo and behold, someone has seen sense and she's taken it to the next level, and someone has granted me that home leave. So I did manage to get home for the few days of Christmas to see my family, which was massive, really, mate. I mean, everything had gone. I was struggling myself again mentally because, like I said, the college course had gone. I couldn't re-enroll on a college course up there because it would have gone on to the next academic year. And I basically rotted for the next 6 months of the sentence. I rotted in Kirk-Levington because I didn't want people coming up to see me in Middlesbrough because it was a 2-3 hour journey. I said, look, just stay at home. I'll see you when I come home. So, yeah, it was a bit of a lonely 6 months, really, to be honest.
Tell us about that day that you walked out the doors of Freeman.
Mind-blowing. But in a weird kind of way, massive anticlimax because you build yourself up for it so much. And when you're sat in the back of that car and you think, right, what do I do now? You know, because you're waiting to go for breakfast or you're waiting to go for dinner or you're waiting to queue up here. And you're in the back of that car and you think, well, I'm actually going home now. And you're like, I want to get home, but what am I going to do when I get home? But that only kicks in after. So first few days, I mean, I'm not going to lie, there was tears in the back of the car. We drove into Yarm, got a coffee, a bacon bun. So there was tears in the back of the car. Then we set off home. I mean, I'm sat in the back of the car, and the amount of times I fell asleep because I think the adrenaline, you build yourself up for something so much. For then to be sat in a car, my body just shut down. It felt like I was on a shutdown. Got home. How bizarre is this? You've spent that much time locked up. You would think that the first thing you want to do is run out of that door, run to the pub, run to see your mates, run round the block. I didn't. The only thing I did was had another brew with my mum and dad. I went straight to bed because my body was that exhausted because I'd been that pent up for that long, mate. I think it was a release. And in prison, like I've mentioned it on a couple of others, I never got upset in prison. It's a skill that I have to which I don't necessarily have anymore, where I can just put the shutters down and I have no emotion whatsoever. And I think it all at that point, my body started to go into shock, as in the sense of, fuck, what do I do now?
I mean, you think when you come out that you're gonna be able to walk into a job, but that hasn't been the case for you. And I mean, you know, you've got so many. I don't want to go through them all, but just give us one example of the kind of blocking mechanism and the reason getting a job is blocked, or it's so difficult to get a job and come out. Because people often say to me when I interview former criminals, well, they're just on a merry-go-round. Well, it's a merry-go-round which isn't of their own making. I've always said.
Yeah, no, it is. That's. I'll be honest. Like, just a quick one before we start this. The toughest part of my sentence wasn't jail. Believe me, it wasn't. Which I know it's going to be really hard for people to understand. The toughest part of my sentence was coming out, trying to get back into society. And in the midterm of that, I fell back into alcohol and drugs again because there was negative things happening. I was paranoid again. I would go for jobs. I'll give you a good example in a minute, but I was going for jobs. I've never not got a job that I've gone for in my life. As in, I've been really lucky. I present well, hopefully. I've got a decent education. I've got good backup. I've always had good contacts. So I knew that I could get jobs, but I was missing out on jobs that were really very simple. I'll give you one. I actually applied for a job in the council to sweep roads. Didn't get it because I was too overqualified and they were unsure that I was going to stick to it. And let's be fair, they probably found out that I was an ex-crim. But I'll give you a really good example. So I started a job for BT, our big BT people, yeah. I wanted to be an engineer with the electrical background because a quick one on that, I'd enrolled again when I got out on the electrical course locally. So I was doing that course, wanting to get back into electrics. BT were recruiting as well as I was coming out of college. So I applied for BT. They said, we haven't got any engineer positions. Why don't you come into the sales team? Because I had a sales background, mate, like I've said. Yeah. Come into the sales team and then transfer out onto engineering when they have a position. I thought, you know what, good plan. At least it gets me in there. All I wanted to do was work and prove to people that I wanted to work and I'd fucked up. So I've gone through recruitment. It was actually via the job centre because I was getting nowhere with applications because I was dead honest on my forms and they say, have you got any unspent convictions? I was ticking yes every time, thinking I'd be an honest man. Nowhere will touch you with an unspent conviction. I'm going to tell everyone now, if you've got an unspent conviction, you'll be very lucky unless you know of someone that's willing to take that chance. No big corporations will take you. And they will always find ways of, if 10 people go for an interview, it's called discrimination. And let's face it, we do it all day in our lives. 10 people will go for an interview, 5 will be have a conviction, 2 will be disabled, and the rest will be whatever. Because you've got that unspent conviction, there will be others pushed up in the queue before you. It's a simple way of life, and they will whittle down the CVs. And although a lot of places say we take on ex-offenders, they do, but not unspent conviction offenders. So I've applied for this job. Sorry, I was struggling for jobs. I've gone to the job centre and I've said, look, I'm trying my best here. BT, right, okay. I've got a conviction at the job centre because I told them. Yeah, it's okay. We've told them and it's fine. So that was disclosure 1, yeah? I've then gone for an interview at BT with a recruitment company that they use called Manpower. And I don't mind naming them now because I just think it's shit. The fact that someone was really wanting to get on the ladder was actually quite good at the job. So Manpower do all BT's recruitment. Basically, if you're shit, they can sack you off in 3 months, and it's not through BT. The usual recruitment company, stroke agency kind of methodology. So I declared it to Manpower, to the lady. She said, yeah, that's not a problem, Lee. We know about it. The job centre have done it. So that's disclosure 2, the same job. Disclosure 3 is actually with the BT boss, because you go in for an interview with a BT and you do some team building. So I've disclosed this 3 times now for this job. I've gone and done the job for 8 weeks training course in-house. So it's a lot of training, really. Bloody hell, it's like prison service, isn't it?
Yeah.
So I've put a bit of effort into it, and I was loving it. I was enjoying it, albeit not what I wanted to do, but I knew there was a reason for doing it. So I've gone. It's sales-based, telesales. So I've gone back onto the shop floor, which they call going live. So you're going live next week as a group. 6 new members of staff go into a team to sell BT's products and answer the phones and get people ringing up for the football and whatnot. So I've gone onto the floor. I've done the first week, and within my team and within one of the first, the first, how can I say it? I've sold the most with a new recruits, basically, which they've ever had. So clearly I had an aptitude for the job. Clearly I was interested in the job. Monday morning come the following week, I get a, Lee, can I have a word? And I thought, I'm going to get a well done here, or a back slap, or maybe even a little bonus, you never know. And it was a lady from Manpower, and she was looked visibly, upset, and she said, "I'm really sorry, we've got to go and see Andy, the BD lad." So I've gone in, and he said, "I've got some bad news." So what do you mean? And he said, "We've made a mistake." I said, "What do you mean you've made a mistake?" He said, we've made an administration mistake. We can't take on anyone with an unspent conviction." I said, "Hang on a minute. I've disclosed this 3 times now. I've now invested 9 weeks of my life into this place. And now and he went, "There's nothing I can do about it." And because I was on with Manpower, it was a case of pack your desk and crack on. What's all that about? And I could tell you 4 or 5 more stories like that, mate. And it's very hard for lads. So, I mean, I'm really, really lucky, right? I had a good support network, good family, good education, and, well, exactly, Kevin, exactly whatever happened to that act. But you had so much discrimination against people, and they can use ways to get rid of you. So it's unspent, mate, which is why. Sorry, mate, I was just replying to Kevin.
Yeah, and I think that's another key, and again, that's a big point, isn't it? Because it pushes you as someone who's come out of prison, who's desperate for a job, to say, well, if I'm gonna put it on the form, I'm never gonna get a job. So I guess the reaction is to, if you put in for a job, to not put it on a form. But then if they find out, if you get the job and they find out, you're accused of being dishonest.
Right. So listen. So we'll have one more example which will back up what you're saying, and then we'll knock crime on the head there, because we're good boys now. Right. So, mate. So now BT have said, "On your way, son." Now I've got 4 or 5 examples of that. So I'd gone on to the drink again, and I'd really gone into a tailspin. Poor attitude again. The world is against me kind of mentality. So I went knocking on the door of a company 20 miles away from me. Now this is fast forward probably 2-3 years of drinking again, falling by the wayside, doing menial jobs, cash in hand, but getting nowhere fast. And in the midst of all that, and listen, at one point, I don't know if we want to touch on it. And in fact, you know what, let's not touch on it. At one point, I got really disillusioned with life, and I decided that there was no way back for me. Thank God that I come through it. Thank God that I come through it, and the great staff got me through it at the NHS. So we've now gone to work I've applied for a job up in Kendal, and this is for an electrical firm. And on the form, so I've gone through that experience already with BT, of being honest. I've now decided to play a clever bugger and not declare it on a form for an electrical firm up in Kendal. So started the job, done the training, doing really well. And the boss has pulled me in one day and said, "Can I have a word again?" So it's always that, "Can I have a word?" And then your heart sinks. I'd become accustomed to it at that point and whatever. But he said, "Can I have a word?" He took me into the office and he said, "Is there anything you need to tell me about an unspent conviction?" And I said, and he went, "Have you put it on your form?" And I said, "No, I haven't. I haven't put it on my form, because I just wanted a job. And I thought, if I have to lie to get a job, then I have to lie to get a job." And he said, "Well, it's come to light that it's unspent." And he said, "I can't do anything about it. The managers have tried, but we're going to have to let you go." So again, I've gone the honest route. It's not happened. Again, I've gone the dishonest route, and it's not happened. It's a case of, where do you go in the middle of that? And where do you go for lads who probably haven't got the acumen to go for jobs like that? They're going to turn back to crime, aren't they? They go back to robbing things off washing lines and to try and earn 50 quid or whatever it may be. So yeah, I'll tell you exactly how I got found out there. One of the lads told me a few weeks later. He said, "There is a lad who works in this factory who's recognised you. You used to work with his dad, who was a prison officer. You worked on his wing," and he's gone home to his dad that night and said, "Dad, is that the lad that nearly got you arrested?" Because unbeknownst to me, 4 or 5 people got tugged to that day. Nothing to do with me. But so he's gone to the bosses and said, "Did you know this lad nearly got my dad sacked? He's criminal." And they've looked into it and realised that it's unspent. I mean, And I mean, that's 11 years later, and it's still following you. So just don't do it in the first instance. That's the message in all this: is don't succumb to the greed, to the crime, whatever. Because 11 years later, I'm still battling to get away from it.
Yeah, and I mean that is the message that we want people to get from this. Really, don't do it. Don't be tempted by that. The money or anything like that. And that's it is from my point, speaking to you and listening to your story, I think there will be people listening to this and if they're even tempted about doing that kind of thing, that they will turn away from it.
Yeah, well, I'll just move rooms, mate. It won't be a second.
All right, no worries, mate. No worries. Lots of comments, lots of people coming in and commenting, which is great. And Donald says people trying to go straight should be supported as far as possible. I agree with that, Donald, 100%. I think that people really do need to be, maybe it's the system needs to be changed. The system needs to be looked at, and people do need to be given the help when they're, when they're moving, when they're coming out of prison. They need to be given that opportunity.
Yeah. I'm just trying to find a decent spot, mate, on the internet's crap.
No worries, mate. It was all right before, but obviously you've had to move.
Any good?
No, I can't. No, you've gone. You're back in the room. Do you have a huge? Yeah. That's it. Great now, mate. Do you have a huge? Super. Okay, look, we'll finish off your story before we take a couple of questions, and we'll get to Newcastle United. We'll finish off on a positive with Newcastle. But what's your current situation now, mate?
Well, I went back into electrical, so just working away in that industry still. Also, that's all it is. Is just purely the focus now is just to purely keep working in that industry. Hopefully, I mean, obviously, I'm playing catch up in career-wise, aren't I? I'm a 41-year-old man now that should technically have 20 or 30 years experience on site, to then take it to the next level of site management and whatnot. But still playing catch up, mate. Still on the tools, still playing catch up, but I'm enjoying it. So,
well, that's good, mate, and that is a positive message. And I think the one thing is as well, you've learned your lesson. I think that's fair to say. You have learned your lesson. I've got to ask, how did you end up supporting Newcastle United, mate? Because as if you haven't had enough pain and turmoil in your life, you support the black and whites like me.
Give me 1 second, pal. Let me just change this.
All right, mate. So obviously Lee supports Newcastle, and for those of you who are just tuned in for the actual true crime side of things, this last part of the show, I've got to ask him a couple of questions about Newcastle, and I will come to a couple of questions that I've pinned. There was one actually that I pinned at the top, but we'll come back to it as soon as Lee gets his.
Right, we're in. We're good.
Okay, so let's talk Newcastle United before I take a couple of questions from the people. So how did you end up supporting Newcastle?
Well, this is going to be a woe is me story now. My old man, when he was younger, was a milkman, strangely enough. So couldn't really take me to the football games because he would be sleeping through, he'd be working of a night time, sleeping through the day. So we had a pal of a Newcastle fan, and I managed to get up to go and see a game as a kid. And when you come from a small place like Lancaster and you drive into Newcastle, you're kind of like, wow, what the hell is this? This is absolutely awesome. So, sorry, man, this fucking iPod's crap.
No worries.
So, so I was kind of seduced by it that way, and obviously seeing, the stadium at that point, big city, big lights. I've never experienced anything like that in my life. I mean, technically, it could have been anywhere, but it could have been Manchester, it could have been anywhere. But that's what grabbed me at first, and it's ever stuck with me ever since then. And I always remember going into All Sports. Do you remember All Sports, a little sports shop? At that point, in the early 90s, they were doing like little T-shirts. There was Blackburn Rovers and Newcastle United on like a grey background. I always remember looking at it thinking, I like that. And it's just stuck ever since. And then when I grew older and got a driving licence, I managed to start going up to the games with lads that I work with. There's 4 or 5 of us from Lancaster that go up, Lammy, Salisbury, Cheggers. We would all take alternate drives up, maybe stay up for the weekend on the piss down the quayside, watch the game. I'll tell you a funny story. Me and Salisbury were driving back one day. I was probably watching this, I think, and we were that hungover. I think we ended up seeing signs for Hull. We've missed the turn off to come over to the west. So yeah, it's been a labour of love, hasn't it? I mean, I was fortunate. I had my season ticket when Bobby was in charge. So obviously we had Shearer, Bellamy, Dyer. It was a real good time to be, a Newcastle fan. And then obviously subsequently, the last 10 years have gone a little bit tits up, haven't they? But
happy with the takeover?
Oh, massively, yeah, massively. The only thing is, I mean, I've got more of a measured approach on it. I don't think we're going to go nuts. I think if the Chuckle brothers had taken over the club, we would have been happy, wouldn't we? It was just a case of getting that person out, because there's nothing worse than seeing so much potential sit there and rot, because that's what we were doing. We're pretty much just rotting. So yeah, I'm excited to see what they're going to do. I don't think we'll go wild in the window, like I've said to you already, because I don't think we can do, because we'd attract the wrong type of player. And I think Eddie Howe is a very good manager, and I think he's intelligent, and I don't think he's here for a quick fix. I think he might be in charge for a while,
Yeah, I agree. Favourite player in your time as a fan?
Got to be Alan. Always been Alan.
Big Al. Shearer.
Big Al. I tell you, I really did. I used to like watching Stephen Taylor from a defensive side. Laurent Robert was good. Ginola. Trying to think. I was going to ask you the other night. Do you remember a left back called Didier Domi?
I do. Yes. Yeah.
What a horrific play. Well, whether I was unlucky, but whenever I used to watch him, we were I think we were playing in UEFA Cup, so we used to go up on a Thursday night. I swear to you, how that lad became a footballer, I've no idea.
Yeah, I've got to be honest, mate. There's been a lot worse than him, but he was particularly bad. Marcelino, mate. I've got to be honest, was probably the worst, one of the worst I've seen. But I could name the worst 11, 100%. Okay, look, I'm gonna take some questions. And I'm probably gonna highlight 2 or 3. I highlighted this one ages ago by Proud to be a Geordie. Okay. So this is one from a prison officer point of view. When dealing with a prisoner, does their conviction come into consideration, or do prison officers just judge them as they have, been on the wing? So I mean, it's an interesting question. Do you, let's say, you see a well-known villain, a big face, who everybody knows he's been in the media. Do they get special treatment, or do you just deal with people as they treat you? If they're good to you, you give them a little bit of a bye. Is it a respect thing, or how does it work?
From my personal point of view, it would mean nothing to me, because quite frequently you would see, you'd have the Northwest News on at night. I mean, for instance, for me is the lad who shot, the lad from Liverpool, the Reece Jones case. You would see something like that on at night. I mean, he actually ended up on my wing, but on the wing that I worked on. You would see a case like that, and then obviously the morning after or the night after, you would see the name on the board, and you'd think there is a small party that thinks, oh, that's that lad that was that. In there isn't enough time to kind of special treat or discriminate against, because there's only 3 of you. You haven't got any time to spend with them. It's purely routine. But I always tried not to look on the computer anyway, because at the end of the day, it only sways your opinion, doesn't it?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, of course.
And you don't want to be seen by other lads to be either negative or positive against someone. Your prison officer training suggests that you should be straight down the line with everyone. It's human nature to naturally build up a relationship with someone and then maybe give them special treatment, but not purely on their conviction or their crime. I would never have done that. Kevin
says, do you have a huge regret? And what is the biggest regret or loss that you've suffered?
Do you know the biggest regret from it all? We would never have been on this podcast now. If I'd have been, there's 2 times in my life that I've fucked up, shall we say. Number 1 was the football, by not getting back on the track the day after. I mean, I used to say that I probably wouldn't have had it anyway, because lots of lads don't. But the other biggest regret is not sticking to my guns and waiting for the fire service. So I guess the cheesy line on that is, wait for your dream or wait for what you're passionate about. I took a job because someone said it's 30 grand and it's a pension and it's up the road. What I should have done is wait for the fire brigade. Even if it took 2, 3, 4 more years, we wouldn't have been having this chat now. So it's buys and buys.
Yeah, of course it does. Life goals. I'm not sure if they're still watching, but they wanted to know what an average day in prison's like, because for somebody, I guess, who's never been in prison. I mean, I've visited many prisons, but I've never been in jail. But What was the day-to-day life from opening up to getting locked down?
So the routine would kind of be, you would come in at, say, 7:30 in the morning. Technically, what you should do is give prisoners breakfast before they move. So you would go around all the doors with a little trolley, and it would be a cold breakfast. It would be, your Rice Krispies, your cornflakes. You would have fresh milk, maybe some fruit, and you would take applications off them while you was going, requests. So at this point, all prisoners locked up. You give them cereal packs, etc., etc. Then they get, say, half an hour for dinner. You then unlock for work activities. So they may be going off to a workshop to do, recycling, or on the gardens to clean the prison. They may be going to education. They may have a visit that day. They may have everything. You have a board that tells you all the movements off that wing. So at 8 o'clock, you go and get all the lads that need to be out to go to work. So you go and do an unlock, stand at the door, and they go off to other parts of the prison to then be managed by other officers in those departments. They would then come back from work at, say, 11:30, back onto the wing, ready for the dinner time period. And the dinner time period it can be quite chaotic and hectic. And it's where a lot of the trouble starts, because things in prison are telephone calls, canteen, so your bits and bobs that you're allowed, and food. Food is a big problem in prison because the quality is shite, I'll be honest, and there isn't much of it. And if you've got young 21-year-old lads in there, they're going to get angry if they're not being fed. Same as you are if you're not being fed on the street. So they would come back onto the wing at 11:30, stay locked up, then having come out for dinner and sat around for dinner. It might be a little bit different now. And then back out to work again at 1 o'clock till, say, 4 o'clock. Come back onto the wing, locked behind the doors for half an hour while tea is set up, same again, serve tea. And then at night time should be association. So there would be, let's say there was 80 prisoners, 40 of them may be allowed out to associate, i.e. play pool, play cards, watch the TV on the landing, just to kind of interact with other prisoners, which is the biggest problem in prison, because that's where, if there's going to be any trouble, it usually stews into association at night time, and then it's all sorted out. Obviously, in that period as well, you've got lads who can go off to the gym if they've earned it. If they've been good, they can have a gym session. They may have probation coming on to see them. So it's a very busy, transient day. You've got to have eyes in the back of your head. And don't forget, there's only 3 officers to 80 lads. So if there is any shenanigans in that, it's chaos. Well, and then come 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, the boys are locked up. You will go around with the hot water at night. If they wanted a brew at night time, because in the closed condition, they weren't allowed a kettle in the cell at that point. So go around with the hot stuff. If there's any applications to give back, if there's any medication to give out, you would go around and do that at 9 o'clock, and then the night staff would come on and take over for the night, to which everybody's locked up through the night. Nobody sees daylight until 7:30 in the morning.
Great stuff. Let's hope life goals you don't experience it, but they are from the horse's mouth. Okay, last question. This has been an epic podcast. To be honest, I knew it would be from the start, and I'm just delighted that we managed to get you on and you've managed to share your story. Kevin, we'll give you the last question. Is it best to be the grey man in prison?
Absolutely, Kevin. Absolutely. I think sometimes in life as well, mate, not just in prison, but definitely in prison, is the grey man is the best man. Stay out of the way, because there's a lot of places you can get into trouble in prison, and that's a lot of it is your own doing. I mean, just as well, the gang stuff you're always going to get in prison because you've been involved in it on the way out. But you can get involved into a lot of debt, get caught up in stuff in prison. So the grey man is the best one, 100%.
Where can people find you? I will stick some links below. What are your plans for the future? I mean, I heard you speaking to Shaun Attwoods, of course, and I think you should write a book, mate. There's no doubt about it. I think I was even thinking of the title before I came up, and I'm sure Screwed Up's never been used. But go on, what's your title?
Well, no, because there's actually a book out there, and if you're interested in this kind of thing, I read it. I read it. When I went to Egypt in the middle of, before I got sentenced. Yeah. There's 2 books. I can't remember the author, but one of them's called Screwed and one of them's called Banged Up. And do you know what? They're great books. But I've already thought of the name of mine. I've got it all penned.
Keep it in your mind. Keep it in your mind.
Sure?
Keep it in your mind. Keep it in your mind. Don't give me the exclusive. Keep it in your mind, just in case somebody nicks it. I genuinely think it's a great idea.
Because they can't. No, because I'll give it to you. Listen to this, because I want you to know the connotations. I used to play left wing at football. I fell into every job that I've gone for pretty much, and I've been in prison as an officer and as a prisoner, and it's called winging it.
I like it. I like it. There's a lot
Just
of
like
thought
what I
gone
do
into
every day
that.
in life.
Well, try and make some progress with it, and if Shaun won't do it, I'd certainly help you with it, mate. I think the key for writing a book is you've got to get the words down, mate. And I mean, you're averaging 70,000 to 90,000 words is what you want. You need to have your beginning, your middle, and your end. You need to have a message thread throughout, and we know what the message is. Bloody hell! Don't do what I've done.
Don't take the easy route. Don't take the easy route. Stick to your guns.
And the only other thing, I guess, that you need to put out there is essentially, well, you decide what names you want to use and what names you can't use, but just be careful and then get it looked over by a good solicitor. But, ultimately in this day and age, you don't need a publisher. You could probably do it yourself. And I would say that this would make a really good film. I've really got to be honest. I think that when you listen to your story, you think this is not realist, but it genuinely is. And, it's a hell of a story with a real character, which is you.
And we've only listened. We've only had nigh on 3 hours now. I've skipped over a hell of a lot. There's loads more stuff that have. Some of it you wouldn't even believe some of it, would you? But it's it's fucking there. It is what it is.
No, 100%, mate. I mean, and again, there's some of the characters you'll have come across. You'll be able to write about and put out there. And I'm sure that's. I think if you focus on that, set that as your goal for this year. And even and just a little tip about writing, because I've written lots of books, is always try and do something in a day. And it might not, some days you'll sit down and you can type for 2 hours, but then the next day you might not feel like typing. Don't waste that day. Maybe do a little bit of research. Maybe check online, go through your photographs that you want to stick in the book. Ring somebody up for a forward. Never ever put off something when you're moving towards that goal of writing a book. You know what I mean? But I think lots of people saying positive vibes. Thanks for coming on as admin today, as moderator. Definitely write a book. And that is great. And proud to be a Geordie. Says 2 podcasts I've been glued to lately is this one and Kevin Lane's. Yeah, thanks. Kevin was a great guest, and he's got his life back on track as well now, which is absolutely fantastic. But yeah, look, lots of positive comments. I'm sure you've seen a lot of them coming up on the screen as well, mate. Anything you want to say to people watching?
Just not just from this podcast, people in general. But I mean, I've not seen the comments because I'll sift through them in a bit. But the ones I've seen have popped up have been really positive. People have been the biggest part for me in all this was worrying about what people thought of me and about the guilt on what I've done. But people, since I've started doing this podcast thing, which is only last 6 or 7 months, the people have been absolutely fantastic, mate. They've been, words of support. I've got people emailing me, because I've said I'll tell everyone in a minute my email address and, where you can find me. If you want to message me and you're going through a bit of shit or whatever, I'm always happy to speak to people. But the general public have been fantastic, mate. And I don't even know why I was ever worried. That was one of my biggest worries. I locked myself away for years thinking that everybody hated me. For what I'd done, but the people have given me so much more confidence and belief to go forward, actually doing these little things. And it's all down to them. If the first one, when it aired with Samworth, I was expecting bad things and I thought, well, this is me, I won't ever do it again. But everything just took off from there.
Yeah, I think you've just got to remember that the comments can be. You're going to get positives, you're going to get negatives, but ultimately you've got to realize that there is always going to be somebody who's going to have a negative opinion, and it's
of course,
don't take them to heart. You've just got to crack on and just really concentrate on the positives. There's so many more positives out there, and really. I have just seen, as Donald says, positive vibes. Rachel says, amazing content. Thanks for sharing today, Lee. Paul Gibson says, good that he missed most of it, but thanks. Great show, says Tom. John Justice Allen from QTech says, all the best for the new year, Lee, and get that book written. Kevin says, choose Mr. Wraith. He'll direct you. Thank you, mate. Film would be amazing, says Chris. And Ian just says, can you sort of some weed? He says, I'm joking. I apologise. Look, we've all got a good sense of humour.
I've got some on my pants. You'll have to come and get them.
On that note, mate, listen, let's get a quick prediction from you on football. Will Newcastle stay up, do you think? And do you think we'll have a little run in the FA Cup this year?
I think I don't know about the FA Cup. I think obviously we'll get through the next round or two. I think we'll stay up. I think it's going to be tight. But yeah, I do. I think Eddie Howe's got enough in him with 2 or 3 little additions, because I don't want to go mental. There's no point in chucking 6 or 7 lads into that group now, because it'll unsettle them. I think we're moving forward. We've got the bad games behind us, as in all the big boys. So I think if we stick with it and we stick with him, I actually think we'll be all right.
Yeah, good stuff. What I've done is I've put Lee's Instagram and Lee's email, which is what Shaun Attwood did. I've also put the link into Neil Samworth's podcast, because Neil's a top lad. We've stuck his podcast in, and Shaun doesn't need the subs, but Lee and my pal Neil definitely
don't forget,
does.
I've done one with Paddy as well, mate. So it's parlay with padraig. There's a chat on there that I've done with him. Yeah, he could do it. He could do it. If you're a good boy and very good boy, he's always in contact. He's been in contact since day one. So I've got.
He's the guy who put us in touch as well, which was great. Did you do Billy Moores as well?
Sorry.
Did you do Billy Moores?
I did Billy Moores. Yeah. Billy, he's a nice lad, and I've done. There's a lad Bible thing coming out. Went down to London a couple of weeks back actually to do a lad Bible, so it's out in January.
Brilliant.
So all crazy stuff, mate. It's all taken off since that first chat with Samworth.
Yeah, great stuff. Well, listen, mate, you have a good night tonight. I hope you have a great new year, and make sure you get up here for a match once our COVID situation gets sorted out. It would be good to meet up with you face to face, mate.
Definitely, mate. Definitely. Be more than up for that. And happy New Year, everyone. Hope you've had a good Christmas. Cheers, Steve, and I'll give you a bell in the next few days, mate. All right.
Take care. Happy New Year, pal. Thanks for coming on.
See you later, bud. See you in a bit.